little while ago.
Oh,
all right.
There we are. We are live. And first off, hello, welcome. It's been a little while. We had finally a speculation map, which everybody was clamoring and talking to Nightmares about. When are you releasing this map? It is almost mid-March. Easter is almost here. Where's this map? They've been asking for this map probably since last year. So
yeah, that's fair.
If you're looking at the screen and you're not listening to this, look at the TV screen. There's more than just me. You're used to seeing me, but we have a special guest, the one, the only, Dreamport Productions. Aiden, how are you?
I'm good. I'm actually really curious about a lot of things, and I think like it's fun now that there's a map out. Now we can have things to talk about. It's not just like flying random, rumors here and there. Like now it's a little more streamlined, but I'm good. I'm ready to talk. Ready to talk HHN.
And there's quite some interesting factors on this map, other than what's been kind of speculating, especially in the last like 2 weeks. I think stuff has been kind of flying out before the map, kind of being talked about here and there. Some stuff I will say, full disclosure, we have to get this out of the way to not get sued. Nothing on this map is official until it is stated by Universal themselves. When they state something, it is official, unless that 1 year we're not going to discuss where, they had to pull back because certain thing went on. But take the map with a grain of salt. Do not get excited over things, because as we always know, Demon Slayer, what other stuff have they teased before in this map? Maybe Ghostface at one time.
The Ghostface, Devil Dogs last year. I know a lot of people were like kind of bummed about that one not coming. So
yes. Oh, we have. What is up, Eddie? Hello, amigos. Hola. ¿Cómo estás? Hello. We have some people trickling in. Hello.
How you doing?
So, without further ado, Aiden, when you first looked at this map, how did you digest it? Were you just like, that's what I expected? Or were you like, that's different? Because there were things, and usually for me, when it comes to the maps, I look first and I usually examine, because we know usually when the first one comes out, it's no scare zones unless it's something teased or big. Usually the houses, you look through them and I'm like, yeah, some of those things I kind of been told before, or I've heard. And I always like overlook little things, and we'll talk about some of those little things a little later on when we talk about the map. But how do you usually digest the map?
So, and then I usually go straight to originals first. I don't know why that's just my first inclination. It's probably because I love originals, and Orlando and originals. It's really the bread and butter of the event. If I'm being honest, whether it's scare zones, houses, whatever, original concepts. I mean, the IPs are great. They have been really great. But the originals just, I don't know, there's a certain flair about them. So I always look for originals first. And I did that with this map, especially like looking at the originals. My mind went to a few in particular, and we'll talk about it as we talk about the map. But looking around, and I think the thing to note for those who are maybe new to the map or new this year, there are no specific code names, no specific titles, no specific anything. It's all symbols, which I personally like that. I think it's fun. I think it's fun to look through. And I think that's where my mind went to first, is like, okay, let me decode these things. Let me pull out my sources. What does this look like? Is this something that we've already seen before? Is this something, because there are a few on here that are nods to symbols we've already seen at the event. So my brain went first to originals. So I don't know where your head was at the second, like if there's a thing in particular that's like, boom, this is what I'm laser focusing on. But that's where I was at.
Yeah, it was definitely to the IPs that I, full disclosure, I was told certain IPs well early. I'm talking way before they ever got posted on Twitter or anything, like in the last couple of weeks. I already knew in the back of my head certain things. So I was looking at those things going, yep, yep. And that's different and
Mm,
interesting. And when you said about the code words, it is funny because one of the things on there could have just said blood.
mm-hmm.
What could have meant? But when you have a picture, it almost
Right.
makes you analyze it just as much as a code word. So I do like the symbols, and it is kind of neat to come up with the symbols. Some of them are a little blatant, like,
Yeah.
you should know what this is. But without further ado, this is what we're talking about, the
Boom.
map. This is something else. Can't wait to hear. Oh, yeah, I have some opinions on this. So we'll just get the easy ones out of the way. Um, we can start with I believe that's a Cadillac symbol, correct?
Yeah, it is a Cadillac symbol, and it's so funny. I'm gonna sidebar real quick. Um, Looking at this, because when I saw the map, it was right as it dropped. So I was actually kind of happy about this because I was like, I didn't want to be spoiled with the symbols where I knew some of them, like I can piece some of them together, but that one was stumping me. I was like, what is this for? I'm like, what are we looking at? What specifically what car are we looking at? Because if we could figure out what car we're looking at, we can look at what IP because it is designated with a film reel, and that's kind of their way of saying like these are IPs. So like looking at that and going, okay, what's going on here? So I looked and looked and looked and looked, and then I was like, car. What has been talked about? What we maybe know that has a car involved? And then I think back to Cadillac, and I was like, wait a minute, hold on, let me look this up. And it's specifically the Cadillac. I believe it's between late 50s, like a late 50s Cadillac, which is the Cadillac used in.
Oh, the one
Oh,
and only. Where is it? Where is it? Do I have it?
we have it in the
Oh,
chat already.
oh. Full disclosure, that's me running back to my hotel, trying to beat everyone out to the parking lot and to the buses. That's me right there. If you don't know what I was teasing there, that is the first announcement, not for this year, but when we first had Ghostbusters presented at Halloween Horror Nights, which, interesting enough, I was told Ghostbusters, but I do not know which way this is going to sway. So it's very interesting of how that's going to go. It go either way. If it's going to be Frozen Empire, we should see an announcement very, very soon because the movie comes out, I believe, towards the end of the month.
I think it's next week. From what I read, I believe it's maybe next Friday. I can look and see.
Yeah, so I believe it would be that, or it could be the classic 1 and 2. Kind of
March
interesting.
22nd.
Okay.
That's when it comes out.
Which way are you possibly leaning, or do you think it could be a mashup of all of them?
I wonder because of, and I have one real factor that, because for me, I would think Frozen Empire, specifically because that movie is hitting you with the nostalgia. It's hitting you with the Ecto One. You got Slimer in there. You got the little mini Stay Puffs. You got all that stuff, and then of course you have the original Ghostbusters back in costume. So it's like, yeah, you'd think maybe with that you get to kind of have your cake and eat it too. You have the new stuff, and then you also have the old stuff. But my one kind of thought with that is, because you had in the original house, you had people of varying ages playing the Ghostbusters. With the new
Mhm.
one, they're all older. Now you can do prosthetics and stuff, but I don't know how people might feel with necessarily seeing them portrayed as that way. I don't know if that would be weird, if it would be like, oh,
Yeah.
you're going to go like, because in the movie context, it's like the legacy thing, but like, I wonder how many people would necessarily go to Ghostbusters to see all the new characters in the old. Like, I feel like that's why a lot of people I feel like want 1 and 2, because it's the original, it's the classic. You get the main 4, you get the the big moments. But I think Frozen could be cool. I think that like the ice setting could be really interesting, especially what they did with Dueling Dragons
It's
last
New
year.
York.
I'm just
Yep.
thinking,
Yeah.
yeah, like making it, or like Deadman's Pier, even like that, like icy with all the flocking and stuff everywhere. I think could be
Yes.
really interesting in a
Maybe do
house,
like
but
an effect of like the frozen Statue of Liberty in the background.
mhm.
That'd be kind of
Yeah,
dope.
yeah, lots of great potential, and that's why I don't want it to necessarily be a pound for pound
Rehash.
remake. Yeah,
Mhm.
so that's where I'm at. I don't know where are you at with this.
Which is very interesting that you say that, because I did notice something that Hornets has been doing lately, and this might come into play on another symbol here on this map. Um, I I think it could be, if they're going with whatever the moon and star symbol, whatever that may be, this I believe could play into a theme of it being the classic
Mm,
Ghostbusters, because it wouldn't make sense to have one property be from the 80s and then one property just be this brand new movie. But then again, we've seen Stranger Things at Horror Nights, and that's not a Stranger Things reference that's coming this year. Don't don't think that. We do have quite a bit of chats. Let's get to those for a second. Ooh, let me bring up. Hello, hello, hello. Have you guys watched Dreamport's video? Leave it down in the comments section if you have. He had some really good take on one of the houses we'll talk about. It totally, it was not what I was thinking.
that's how I feel a lot of the time.
Is the map
I want to
posted
be
anywhere yet? Yes, the map is, if you go just Horror Night Nightmares, you can look it up on Twitter. Just type in, I'm pretty sure, just HHN 33 speculation map, and you'll see it posted everywhere.
yeah, or just look on Google at this point, because there are other publications who have made posts on
Mhm.
it, articles, other videos. So it's out there if you want to look at it deeper and look at it on your own time.
Yeah.
Also, I want to say real quick, thank you for all the people who did say they watched the video, because yeah, that video was a lot of fun to make. So just
Mhm.
wanted to say that real quick before we move on.
We have oh yes. And if you love HHN trivia,
Mm,
go check out Six Billiam's channel. He will be kicking that up very, very soon, if I believe that. Yes,
yeah,
right.
shout out to 6 billion, great HHN creator.
Ghostbusters Return would be sick. It would be with probably a Slimer popcorn bucket. Yes. Or
Ooh, they've
Ecto.
been doing a lot of
Or the
those. They've been
Ecto.
doing a lot of Slimers buckets around the
Mhm.
theaters chains.
That's
So
true. Or especially the drinks. I already thought about the food. I was like, oh yeah, marshmallow.
put
Yes, give me more of that.
put Ecto Cooler in the freestyle machines. Stop playing around.
Yes, you probably should go, because it's this is probably the last great year of it before it turns to chaos. So yeah, I would say definitely go. Kind of. Oh,
I
mm,
have seen this. I
that's
have seen this conversation about The
wow.
Conjuring around.
Autumn. Mhm. Wow. If Oof.
If only.
I did not think about that. I mean,
Yeah,
ooh, that,
because Six Flags has that. I don't know if they're bringing it back this year, but
that would definitely change the landscape of Horror Nights once again. I want Frozen, but any Ghostbusters I'm excited for. All right, yeah. Excited for some Ghostbusters. Ooh. We
that's going
will
to be a question
we'll definitely
I'm curious
discuss
to see
that
the
in a
answer for that.
second. So stay tuned for that. That's true. I went in with very little expectations for Ghostbusters, and I remember I'm trying to remember if I went in with Losh or April for the first time. I can't remember, but it might have been Losh. But I remember they were like, "This house is pretty good. You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it." And I was like, "Yeah, that was a great house. It was not super scary, not super jokey, or just like it was just straight what I expected."
And that's something that you want to say too about Frozen, because I had this thought that,
Mhm.
and I want to see the movie first because before I make this, because I could be totally getting this wrong, but I feel like I think people are going to know what I'm talking about, but I don't want it to be misconstrued. The Frozen Empire, like the original Ghostbusters, is a comedy through and through. It's got the
Yep.
horror element, like it's spooky, but it's a comedy. And the
Yeah.
original house was like that. It's almost like Beetlejuice is the same thing, right? It's spooky, not scary necessarily, but it's got the like horror adjacent elements, ghosts, goblins, supernatural creatures. This new one looks more a lot like an action movie, and that's why I wonder what the translation is. I haven't seen it yet, so I don't know. I'll have to watch it and see if there's like if maybe, because I'm just thinking about like it definitely gives off very more like an action vibe, like action adventure. So I wonder if they're gonna have some like spookiness that they could pull from. Um, yeah, that's just a thought of mine.
That's true, because like from the trailer, I really only grasped that there was the one big one.
Mm-hmm.
I forget what they call it, the Frozen Demon or the
Yeah,
Frozen King or something.
something
There's
like that.
that, and I've seen a few of the Funko Pop characters that are supposed to be in it. Like, was it Pukey is like a character,
Yeah, like
and then you got Slimer. But yeah, maybe not as much horror. I think because they want to draw in kids for this one, kids
sure.
and like the older crowd as well, for that nostalgic.
Sure.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Queso Quackers. A frequent visitor in my live stream, so thank you again. Thank you, Eddie.
Ooh. Yes. Interactive Slimer bucket. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Well, I mean, Slimer doesn't really talk. So I guess
he
he would
can.
just, he could glow though.
He could
That'd be
glow in
kind
the
of
dark, maybe a black light like kind of thing, or glow in the dark or something.
Frozen Empire. So a lot of people want Frozen Empire. Okay.
I do think there's a way, like if for any people that visit the park not during HHN, they have the green Grinch popcorn. So I mean, this is literally just green popcorn.
Yes.
There's no flavoring to it. But I mean, that'd be an
And
easy one. They could just whip out and say Slimer popcorn.
please, Universal, if you are somehow watching this for research purposes, give us, you know what I'm finna ask for. Losh knows too. Give us the cooler, the
Yeah,
put it in the freestyle machine, and I
yeah, I
will
was saying
buy a
that.
freestyle cup.
Yeah, let me get Ecto Cooler in the
Yeah.
freestyle machine for sure.
Yes. Um. uh, well, maybe a Freddy's, maybe a Five Nights.
Maybe we'll be spending 5 nights with a Freddy. Maybe not the Freddy you're thinking of, but we'll be spending more than 5 nights of the event with a
Very
Freddy.
good take, Jake. Wow, I like that. Yeah, it kind of felt like a dark ride.
Mhm.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that definitely.
Lots of effects, lots of like puppets and special like I just think of that scene where they're there and the Slimer's up in the corner of the room and it's the I think like two statues or one statue and then the actor comes out the side.
Yes.
Like that's very much a dark ride, like a dark ride scene.
Yes, it is. It's a special occasion. Not often we get these maps. Terrifier, very interesting, very interesting. So jumping back to this lovely map,
Hmm.
I don't see Terrifier anywhere. But who knows? Because as we know, when time goes, the map changes. So don't get used to anything on here. So uh, we already tackled the Cadillac. We already can attest what the lollipop is. If you don't know, there was a scare zone, and this is I believe Aiden, you would know if this is kind of a running thing of doing scare zones into houses, or is it usually the other way around?
For the most part, from what I see, it's scare zones into houses because they did it with Trick or Treat, they did it with Killer Clowns, they did it with Deadman's Pier or Deadman's Wharf originally.
That's true.
So the only time I can think of a house becoming a scare zone is Scarecrow. That's the only one I can think of off the top of my head.
Hmm,
That's like
yeah.
a specific house becoming a scare zone. But no, typically from what I've seen in recent years, they like to do maybe one scare zone, whether it's a recent one or an older one, turning it into a house.
And that would take us to the lollipop, probably, maybe being Sweet Revenge,
Mm.
which we don't know how this would go. Will we just go back to the town? Is this going to take, the aftermath? Or are we just going to Willy Wonka's, or not Willy Wonka? They don't want to get sued. Major Sweets factory, which I think would make the most sense, kind of doing a play on that movie. Um, I could just imagine like the sights, the smell.
Ooh,
Oh man, yeah.
smells crazy.
Yes, some of the kills.
Oh yeah,
And then this way, I think since they elevated their food portions since we had Sweet Revenge, I could definitely see them tying that into a food booth or at least some kind of food
yeah.
options. They only had very little when it came to, I think, if there was anything for Major Sweets, right?
No, it was
They
like it
didn't have
was a
anything.
tease. They teased
Oh,
us because
okay.
they put all the candy out, and we were like, oh, the tribute store, it's tying in. Are we going to be able to
Yeah,
get the candy in the tribute store? And they were like, there was no like I don't remember because I remember seeing people saying you're going to be able to get the candy in the store.
yeah,
And I was
or a
like, okay,
cookie or something with that
yeah, like something with
logo.
the logo on, and they had the logo they had that little and little spot at the end where they had all the logo stuff, all like on the cups and shirts and stuff. So we need to see that merch if we get a house.
Yeah,
Bring
that's
out
what
the
I was thinking.
shirts.
That would be the next thing. I want Major Sweets T-shirt or something. That'd be cool. Give us some candy, maybe, or a cookie, and some merch,
Yeah,
T-shirts.
yeah,
That's quite simple. Uh, no surprise there, unless that's a twist. But I don't see that being a twist on that one. The biggest, well, we'll just go right next to it. FNF unknown IP, which if you don't know what FNF means, it means I'm not going to say the other. Fast and Furious is what that would mean. And we've only had, which was surprising, Lash mentioned is we only had two houses so far, right?
mm-hmm.
And,
Yep.
and they both have been Blumhouse. So
Yeah,
it's
because
only fitting. No, wait a minute. Sorry. My correction. It was Chucky. It
yeah,
was, wait a minute. We had Blumhouse.
it was Blumhouse, and then it was Blumhouse, Freaking Black Phone, and then Chucky last year.
Yeah, okay. I don't know why it's between going to Hollywood and Orlando. My brain's like, oh yeah, we had extra Blumhouses. Um, it says unknown IP. I think we're all kind of leaning towards one way, unless it's going to be something we're not expecting. Uh, I think most people are kind of guessing it's going to be Blumhouse again. Maybe a mixture of a house. Maybe it could be some older properties we haven't seen before. I mean, do they want to dip back into Megan again? We know Five Nights is kind of Ixnay because that would kind of be its own house. I don't think that would be a share
Oh yeah,
property.
for sure.
Um, and really, they haven't had too big of a successful movie this year so far.
Mhm.
Couldn't be Night Swim. Imaginary is the closest I could see them doing, unless there's just a surprise down the line that they're like, oh, Blumhouse is going to drop this trailer on everybody. But I don't think they have anything. Uh, what did you think about the unknown IP?
So I'm leaning towards Blumhouse, and I know. I guess I should also say this: locations are not set in stone. This can be in any. Like last year, we also had Unknown in Fast and Furious, which was, I believe, it turned out to be Stranger Things.
Oh, that's
Right.
true. Yeah.
So and then that moved. So people like don't take that as necessarily it being in the Fast and Furious, but I do think Blumhouse is, in my opinion, a perfect house for Fast and Furious because of just the way you get the split. You get that in between. And
Yep.
I think personally, Horrors of Blumhouse work better than Chucky in terms of like pacing, just in terms of all that stuff. But I think that could be. I think Blumhouse could work here, and if it is here, but I think I don't know. I think they've been treating Blumhouse recently, and especially you can attest to this because you've been to the thing in the event in Hollywood. It's kind of almost like the shared collection of characters. Like they had the Behind the Screams, which was like Megan and FNAF and Black Phone and Purge and everybody, So I feel like you can kind of bring, and they want to treat it like this sort of shared,
Mm-hmm.
collection of characters. So if you could, do that again, obviously the Horrors of Blumhouse format works a lot for this. And I think they might want to look back into like, okay, let's start doing this. And if we have a big movie like The Exorcist or FNAF in a future time or another big one that we know we can carry a whole, like I'm just thinking of the movies that maybe they haven't done. Megan, Imaginary. I don't know if any of those can carry their own. I think that would be great if you could have like a couple scenes from each, like a little bite size bit. But my money's on Blumhouse being here because they had the thing. They put
Yeah.
that image out. They were like, go to Halloween Horror Nights. So and there's nothing else here that really indicates Blumhouse to me at least.
Yeah. Good old Mr. Jason Blum. He's going to be back again.
You can't stay away.
Welcome to Halloween Horror Nights. I'm Jason Blum. Yeah, I could have.
I could have seen this last year, and I think it was something like I feel like they could have done it like they did with Chucky, where they had right at the event in 2021 they had the photo op.
Yeah.
2022 they had the photo op and they had the Overland Rip Ride Rocket. They had the food booth. Like they were setting up Chucky. They were like, we have this IP. We're not bringing him. We have all the merch. We're just gonna put him at the event, but he's not here. He doesn't have a house yet. We're building up to him getting a house, and then eventually, obviously, they went crazy last year. But like, I think FNAF would have been great like last year. And that's why I was so surprised they didn't do this and like making a FNAF food booth or something just to kind of promote it, just to say, hey, we know this movie's coming out and we know it's got a lot of hype behind it. So let's at least put some pizza and some cupcakes on a menu and make a little booth and call it a day. And that was, or the Cabana Bay experience. I think you maybe not doing the full scale like they had in Hollywood with the full, but like, something along the lines of the Blumhouse experience they had last year at Blumfest, like the photo op where it was, or like mixing it with the Chucky. I don't know. I think that it would be a great idea personally to have that as a Cabana Bay experience, but I don't know if they would do it this year, especially if it doesn't come to the event. If it does, sure. But if not,
calling that right now. Aiden put out that little tease there. Now watch, we're gonna see those same cutouts that they literally just took from there, put it in the back warehouse, and then they're like, "Oh, the Blumhouse experience at Cabana Bay."
Or
like,
or
wait
the
a minute, I saw this last year.
Or the one that they had at the other resorts, because wasn't that just like a cutout?
Yeah,
like the other
they took that
monster.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, so there you go. They already have what, three of them that they had, the Megan and not Insidious, Exorcist and
Yeah,
FNAF.
they
So
they could definitely just take the the animatronics that don't move and build it like they did with Chucky's kind of walkthrough photo type thing that
mhm,
they did last year, but just make it the restaurant and certain, scenes that you could take pictures with
yeah,
the
yeah.
FNAF characters. I could see them doing that just to kind of promote still to be like, hey, FNAF is at horror night, sort of.
I think they wait until they have the sequel ready to do that, because I think,
Yeah.
and I think also the Chucky thing, the one thing I will say, the one stipulation is that the Chucky in the house and in the walkthrough experience were all like Trick or Treat Studio dolls. They were
Oh,
all the ones you can buy
wow.
from the website. From what I understand, because the heads look exactly the same. So unless they just bought a bunch of Chucky heads, but I'm guessing they bought a bunch of Trick or Treat Studio dolls and
Yeah.
used them, because there were some in the house. Some of the puppets and animatronics were used for Trick or Treat Studio dolls. But I mean, I believe some of them are custom made. I mean, there was that one that was definitely custom made, the animatronic, which was for sure
Yeah.
where a lot of the emphasis went on that one. But like for FNAF, I don't know where they would, because that's what I was just saying. I don't know if they would build something to that larger scale, because we know those are big and they're expensive. Those animatronics, like, even if they don't move, even if they're just static figures. Um, so that was just something that I'm thinking, like, if they find a way to get some kind of consumer grade, even if it's high quality, like a high quality consumer grade, and everybody, if anybody knows a little more, I'm not a, I don't like, I just know from what I was seeing and from watching back POVs and looking at my Unmasking the Horror photos, and looking at some of the photos from the Chucky experience, that it all look like Trick or Treat Studios, or most of them, I should say.
Yeah.
So if they have some way to kind of make the animatronics a little cheaper, for sure, I could see them doing that.
And let's see, where do we go? Do we go? I guess we'll just do the normal
We
thing.
we had a comment here about the South
Oh,
America, the South America, um
yes. Where is it? There
all
it
the way
is.
back up here.
Yes.
So you can move that way.
Creature of the Black Lagoon, or maybe La Llorona. She is excellent. I would love for them to bring her back. I sadly don't think that would be the case here unless she is a part of a collector's group, which I don't want to give too much away. Aiden, you had a really good idea in your video, so definitely, if you have not watched his video, um, don't give too much away about that about Brazil. Um, my idea of that was it's Brazil. There's lots of creatures. Not to say Brazil is full of creatures. Um, the myth, the legends, the just looking at the history of like some of the mysterious creatures and stuff. There's a lot they can do with Brazil. They can just focus on one. They can focus on multiples. I don't know about Creature of the Black Lagoon. Does it have any ties to Brazil?
Yes, it is. It is, I believe, in the Amazon. Like, that's the setting of the
Mhm.
original movie. The one thing I have with that is, and it depends on what Horror Night Nightmare says about this in terms of their sort of judge. I'm guessing they kind of agree with me, but it's not marked with the IP symbol. And I know some people consider them originals, Universal Monsters
Mhm.
originals, and I think they're a weird mix, but Universal markets them as IPs. They put them on the banners outside the
That's
gate,
true.
right?
Yeah.
Unmasked had a banner. I want to say Legends Collide also had a banner. So I think they like to market those as IPs. So I feel like that would end up being an IP.
Very interesting that you say that. Like I said, watch Aiden's video because he has a really good idea about this one. If it is true, I would love it. Um, but speaking of, as you said, monsters and IPs, I've always often thought about that too. Like, what is considered an IP? I don't really consider the monsters an IP unless it is something relating like Van Helsing's or Bram Stoker's Dracula,
Mm,
something like that. I think of an IP, but something appeared on this map with a skull, vampire
mm.
teeth, soundstage 22. It is marked an IP. Now, you said that Nightmares typically doesn't do monster stamps as IPs usually, or
I
or
don't know. That
you?
was I have no
Okay.
clue. I was just that was what I was wondering what the criteria would be for for them. Because I know for
Mhm.
me where I stand, I know for some other people where they stand, but I don't know where Nightmares necessarily stands on
And
whether it's
this
an IP or
one,
not.
it could be anything. I mean, vampire teeth. Like my first initial thought was Lost Boys because that
Hmm.
has been floating for how many years now? Almost 2
Yeah.
years, I think. People want Lost Boys. Could it be? Maybe. John Murdy has mentioned Lost Boys before, but it also could be the classic, the one and
Mm.
only. It could be just a throwback to Dracula. It could very well be Mr. Sexy Dracula. It could be a lead up for that. Um, it could be something that you pointed out that blew my mind, and I don't know how I did not even think about this because when this trailer dropped, I like saw the trailer and I was like, oh, that's cool. That's something I would watch on like Netflix or something. It's cool. And then I completely forgot that
Mm.
this is
Boom.
actually a Universal Pictures movie. And she is the daughter of Dracula, I believe, right?
That's essentially what they're going for. There, it's kind of because I remember when this movie was billed as Dracula's Daughter remake for the longest time, and then the trailer came out, and this is like it's kind of, but that's essentially the gist is that she's Dracula's daughter
Mhm.
or granddaughter or whatever, but like something like that. Um, and honestly, I'm gonna say I think I want to say the day before this, I saw the trailer come back up in my feed again, or maybe I saw something. I saw something about it. So when the map
Yeah.
dropped, that was where my mind because my mind was already thinking about this movie because I'm thinking, okay, and again, I put too much stick in the locations. I say don't do that. Do as I say, not as I do. Soundstage 22. Thinking about that location. Thinking about The Exorcist. Okay, The Exorcist, little
Mm.
girl, two little girls, but in this case it would be one. That's
Mhm.
very much has a lot of this. Not I wouldn't say the same because it's definitely obviously vampires. Those are like demon possession, but like the same kind of like you don't think they're going to be menacing, but then they are actually really scary. And then
Yeah.
there's also the idea of like the set pieces that's like this like really nice sort of mansion, manor,
Mhm.
whatever, few different rooms. It's not too out of the way in terms of location. Like they wouldn't have to go too crazy building huge sets for this.
Yeah.
And there was that shot. There was a shot of the trailer. For those who haven't seen the trailer for this, go watch this. It's got Catherine Newton in it from Freaky and Lisa Frankenstein most recently, and as well as Melissa Barrera from Scream. And
Yes.
yeah, it's got a lot of it's got an all star cast and directed Radio Silence, who worked on Ready or Not. It's got big Ready or Not vibes. Ready or Not, Scream. So if you're a fan of any of those recent films, I'd say check this out. But there's a scene where Catherine Newton is like falls in the basement or something, and it's just
Mhm.
a pool of corpses.
Yeah.
And I'm like I'm just imagining. I'm like that's such like I feel like a horror night's like visual, like something crazy like that, like a room full of corpses just kind of lying about, almost like they
Mhm.
had
Um,
in Unmasked last year in Hollywood.
yes. And as well as I know Losh would appreciate this shout out, House of a Thousand Corpses in the
Mm.
catacombs where you're going through and it's like musted and like cobwebs and skulls and bodies. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. It kind of gives you that, and I think they can kind of peel it back, and maybe it starts out as something you're like, oh, how scary is this? And then it moves into. But that was just my theory. Do I think this is going to happen? Probably not. But it's my pitch, and it's my. I'm going to put this in here So if for some reason it does happen,
You're
I
like,
don't want to hear. I want to say, come back to me. I said it first. I broke it. So leave me alone. That's what I want to say. But it's probably not going to happen. But I do encourage everybody to check the movie out because it does give very big, like fun horror vibes from the trailer. At least I don't know. It could not be that great, but we'll see.
oh man, everyone wants Creature. Do you know how bad it would be for them to bring Abigail? Is it Abigail, right?
Yeah.
Like Abigail, not do Creature, and then Monsters goes away because Epic Universe, and we don't see Monsters for like 5 or 6 years. People will be angry.
I feel like it'll be almost like another. I feel like the
Scream.
creatures are. It's all yeah. I was about to say like a Scream or Conjuring, where it's like we were
So
literally like
close.
going down the line so close. We like he's the last guy left that we have not seen yet, and then they're like, no, it's fine. We can move on from that. And I feel like people will not shut up about it. 100%.
Hmm.
I
Wow,
like this comment.
Jones. I
I
like
like
your
this comment.
thinking. That could be a throwback to Jungle of Doom. Yes. Wow. Hmm. And they
I
did
like
mention
this.
Jungle of Doom from last year, so it could be a good tie-in.
I think if they were to do this now, here's my pitch for this because I think regardless of its creature or not, I think we're gonna get a jungle house. Maybe not Jungle of Doom in name, but a
Yeah.
jungle setting for a house because they've really shown that with the set like that scare zone will go. So what you think about it, the sets
Yes.
fantastic. The set
And the creature.
pieces,
Yeah.
yeah, it looked great. Regardless of what you think about, the actual zone, like it could be a good baseline for a great
Mhm.
scenic house, regardless of what monsters you put in there, whether it's the monsters they had in the zone. I don't know why they would do that because they made the point to tie it to Oddfellow, and if they're not bringing Oddfellow back, then what's the point? But like, if they were to do that for something else, like let's say for a Monstros tie-in, some South American monsters tie-in, and any tie-in they do, I think a jungle theme is something they might
Mhm.
be looking at in the near future because of the success of that zone. People love that zone.
Yeah, I'm Horror Nights old in dog years of Horror Nights because I went to Jungle of Doom when it was a house over in Islands when they did it, and I want to say it was 13. They had Jungle of Doom. I believe it was called Jungle of Doom. I always forget all these names. Let's see. Universal Monsters is 100% an IP.
I'm with you, Eddie. I'm
Yeah.
with you. I
I
think
mean,
it's
the
an IP.
brand of Universal Monsters. Yeah, you can't deny it.
And
Yeah.
the way they use it, I mean, like, yes, they're doing something different with it, but how is that different from when they did, let's say, The Exorcist or Texas Chainsaw, the most recent time, or a lot of the IPs that they kind of switch things up in one way or another
Mhm.
versus you know versus. So I'm with you. I think it's an IP in their terms. It is original. Like they do original things, but
It's just funny that you said that. Yeah, that's I mean, Monstros is something they definitely under the Universal brand created, so they can definitely use it. And it's not strange for Orlando to kind of borrow from Hollywood and Hollywood to borrow from Orlando.
I
Eddie Eddie didn't like it. Yeah, my
yeah,
group
well,
didn't like it. I did.
I I think, and this is going to be something, and I'm just going to put this out there for those who have seen both maps. There's a thing, and I think Hollywood did this last year, and it looks like they may be diving back into this. That kind of started in Orlando, and that's the whole bug thing, right? Like the whole
Mhm.
bugs eaten alive. Now they didn't do bugs eaten alive, they did, but a lot of like the big bug costumes and campy whatever feels like it's their take on the Orlando idea. Maybe monsters could be the same thing. Like maybe we do different monsters. Maybe you don't even call it that, but it's kind of the same idea of doing a collection of maybe 3 or 4 Latin American monsters and bringing some back, maybe doing some all new ones, whatever. But it's a connection that I feel like what you're saying is right about like borrowing.
I
Also,
like
Bride of
your idea
Frankenstein
here.
lives.
I love this
Yes.
idea. Yes, Bride of Frankenstein lives. Yes, we need a sequel. That's very rare for me to say I want a sequel to a Universal Monsters house. So, I mean, I'm happy. Maybe we take a little break because there's other IPs I would like to see for them to do. All right, let's get back
Yeah.
to the map. So we did Cadillac. Um, Sprung 4, which is already a weird location. A fourth sprung. Yes. If you didn't know, we are rumored. Well, not really rumored at this point
Yeah, I
until
think
I would
permits
think
are out.
until we get a map of some sort from Universal. They're building two bigger tents in the back. Um, and we're supposed to get a sleep house. Um, I mean,
It's where
some
you
people
go
did,
after waiting in line for a long time in the lines for the other houses. It's where you go after that.
and some people did do some detective work of seeing the symbols are kind of interesting with a throwback to a previous house that we had, which was oh man, Nightmare on Elm Street, Sleepwalkers. No, I forget the
Dreamwalkers.
title. Dreamwalkers. That's right.
Dreamwalkers.
And there was something in the Q video, which was I really thought that was Universal being so creative of almost taking Nightmare on Elm Street, but building upon it and not just doing a straight, oh, you're walking into the movie, because it was supposed to be like this drug that helped you like sleep and dealt with like your fears and stuff. And you were going into, I think sort of the clinic was kind of the idea. And then obviously, it's Freddy all along. But it was very interesting that they took that kind of way with it. But could it be Nightmare on Elm Street? Could it be something else? It's very, very vague symbols. We got a moon. We got some stars. Blumhouse is doing a Wolfman
Yeah, I was about
remake.
to say that. I was about to say Wolfman. That
They're
maybe could
doing
be the
like
monster we're diving into this year.
it could be a vampire Dracula thing over here. Maybe you got Wolfman creature. That would be almost too much for them to do, but could be
They
their
did it
last
before.
hurrah. Could be their
They did it
last
before.
hurrah.
I mean, you can go back to 19 and they had a Frankenstein, Dracula, and Wolfman house, all three separate.
Wow.
So wouldn't
Wow.
be too out of the question if they. I mean, hey, I'm not gonna say they're gonna do that, but I mean, I think, and going back to what you're saying about like original take, like this is what I wished Chucky was in Orlando, like that, or like an original take, showing us stuff from the movies, but also, and I think they tried, and I'm like, because they had the video, like they filmed the whole Q video for it, and it was like, but I just think it just went over everyone's head in the way I don't think they executed it the way that they thought they were going to. So I mean, I would love if this was, yeah, exactly. So there we go. There we go. And I like that house, but it's just like, I know many did not, but I did.
These ones are very baffled to me. There are some on here where I just don't know where to go with this one. Sprung 1, which I guess I'm mistaken on that. I thought we were initially losing the two tents that were closest to like Simpsons area. But judging by the map, they're still there.
Yeah, I think if the theory is right, we're not using parade buildings, then I think that it's kind of like tent 3 and 4 might be replacing the parade buildings, at least for now. I mean, every year I feel like since 30, they've changed because obviously 30 we had Shrek and Men in Black.
Yeah.
31 we had none of that, and we had another soundstage, and we had like we had another at another soundstage location for a first time in a little while, and then Fast and Furious. Last year was the same, but this year changing it up. Next year probably gonna change it up again, and it's like it just keeps evolving to the point for it, and I think regular guests won't care. Like I don't think it doesn't matter. It's us that care. But I think the theory is right. If they don't use parades, they use the sprung tents. They allocate whatever parade building houses they might be doing, either trying to fit it into a sprung tent or moving them to a soundstage, because we would have then, I mean, distribution wouldn't be the same, but we would have 5, if this is correct, 5 soundstage houses, 4 tents, and then Fast and Furious being the odd one out in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and Fast and Furious is essentially, it's half of a tent, and the other half is like the ride queue. Yeah. So, you kind of have an even split of like smaller scale houses and then bigger scale houses, like in terms of size.
Yeah.
So whatever they do with certain IPs, I feel like Monsters, I feel like you kind of have to do that in a soundstage, unless that's your angle, is we're going to do something tight and really in your face. I feel like, and I know some people have said, both I've talked to personally and also in video, like comments, about like them putting bigger IPs in the, like the sprung tents would be the originals. I don't see where that will, like, I see where that becomes a chaos nightmare if you put all your IPs in one corner of the park. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like last year, they like to have, using last year as an example, they had the 4 anchors. You had Stranger Things up in the top left corner. You had, Stranger Things. Oh, yeah, I guess you could say Stranger Things and Exorcist up in the top left corner. Chucky in the middle by Fast and Furious, and then Last of Us and Monsters on the other side. So you had like the 3, and then you had your high profile originals, Yeti up in the top, super popular one, Oddfellow in the back, sort of the icon house. And so you have kind of like points where people are going to want to go. But I feel like if you just throw all your IPs in the front, then it also doesn't encourage people to go. It also doesn't encourage people to go to the back. If you're like, okay, well, I'm here for Bing, 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 like these big IPs. I don't care about originals. I'm just here to do Freddy or Ghostbusters or whatever. Okay, knock them out in the front. Okay, why should I even care to go to the back of the park? Yeah, I don't know where people would. I don't know why people would do that, but I mean,
we have seen it before where people have come in and they'll do 2 or 3 houses and then say it's packed and they couldn't do anything else. So we have seen it.
I've said that sometimes. I've had that point where I'm like, no, I'll do a few during Stain Scream and then keep it moving.
But at least we've gone multiple times.
Sure, for sure.
Yeah. So the Minotaur, I believe it is a Minotaur.
Yes,
I guess. So Minotaur, again, it's one of those vague clues. It could be anything. My first guess was a throwback to a house that I loved, which was Hades. I believe they had a Minotaur type character in there, and that would kind of fit within that. But then again, I keep hearing this Poseidon's Fury type of house idea being thrown out there. Minotaurs could be anything. It could be, like we said, 19th century, or not 19th century, but like that time period. Could be anything, or it could just be literally a play on the word Minotaur or something like that.
Yeah, and I think Hades is on my short list of like houses that I think really could use a sequel, just like the theme, like in one way or another. Whether you go really deeper into one side of it, and I think this is a very oddly specific one for like symbol wise. Like it's not like, like if you did like an icon of Greece, so it's like if it's Greek mythology, that's very broad, right? That can be anybody. But the Minotaur really speaks to that, like, and I mean Hades, it could be Poseidon's Fury is one that I think it's just worth kind of not acknowledging, because I think it would be a great time. I don't know where they would do that, for many reasons. I don't know if I think it would be, Islands is turning 25 this year, and that was an opening day, and Dueling Dragons and everything. I think that could be one. And also, I see Eddie in the chat. What's on my long list? That's a video. That's a full video. So I'm not going to share that, but
that's a tease.
That's a tease. That's one. You get one. No, but I think like going into some sides. I know you did Hades. I never did Hades.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't Medusa like a big player in that house?
Yes,
they had like a room, right?
It was terrifying. God, terrifying.
It can be anything. It can be anything. But
they're really cool that they had this like effect. I do believe it was in the Medusa room where it was like the floor had like sort of a platform that you would walk upon it. Very short platform, but it was like built there so they had the motors underneath, and it would like zzz, like the floor would like vibrate, so you would see her come around the corner like with the serpents. It was creepy. That house was definitely packed with like some good scares in there, so I would love it.
Yeah, just something of that nature. I think you can go, because that's the thing too, is like Poseidon's Fury, you would kind of like Dueling Dragons kind of had it made, like the queue had some creepy part. Like they literally pulled a few of those skeleton rooms just from the queue. Like they didn't really have to do anything crazy. But Poseidon's Fury, you kind of would have to have a little more imagination, I think, too. And I'm not saying they couldn't do this. Obviously, they're very creative people over there. But I'm just saying, like, it would take more to pull, like, make it a spin. Whereas something like Hades is like, it's already kind of there for you. All like the dark mythology and just like, and who says this is even Greek? This could just be a mythic, almost like the Yeti, which is like a mythic character, like something we kind of saw that where it was like, could have been a bunch of different urban legends or myth creatures from all around the world until we landed on like Bigfoot. So I think a creature house, definitely could be fun. They're very popular. Whenever they do those creature houses, I feel like, especially them Yetis, man, people can't get enough of
them. We have nothing, I guess, to say about Sprung 2, Unknown Original. There's just nothing there. So yeah. I'm guessing even Nightmares is like, we know something's there.
Yeah, it could also be maybe a few different ideas, but nothing concrete. My thinking, and here's just going to be my one thought I would have about this: if they are going to continue their train that they've been on with icons, maybe this is an icon house of some sort of whoever the icon could be. We don't know, obviously, but if this, and that could be anything. So that's not even, I wouldn't even dive too deep into that, but I'm just saying, like, I feel like this almost was kind of like how Oddfellow kind of initially came out, right? Because it was like this kind of whisper of maybe there's a new icon coming. We had Pumpkin Lore the year before, and then we saw the circus. Then we had the static video. I was like, okay, maybe Oddfellow, and then it was building until we got the release that it was obviously Oddfellow. So I'm thinking they're going to keep going with some kind of icon. If they do Sweet's Revenge, maybe Major Sweets becomes our icon. But if they don't go that way, like if maybe they don't consider him as like an icon, maybe this could be an icon house. But that's just my very quick thought.
Told you. Aiden's he's always on it, man. He's always on it.
I thought about that. I was just thinking about it because I haven't stopped thinking about this map. This is what I do.
And that brings us to our final two on this map, at least when it comes to houses. Now, Sprung 3. What an interesting one. Yeah. Now, it's polarizing because it could be either or either.
We have a lot of people that have very strong opinions about this in the chat. So y'all come out and let us know.
Yes. What are y'all thinking? Which way is it going to be flipping? Now, full disclosure, I was told earlier on it was Quiet Place.
Mhm.
Wasn't told if it meant the new movies or the new movie, the prequel, or which I can definitely see that being a house,
A little bit.
or if it was a tie to the original one, which I could see being a house as well. But more so, I think the new one plays a little bit better for a house, but just because it's chaos, it's a city. Um, they have done creature type things before, so um, and I know we've talked about this, how this would be an interesting play on a house being kind of like silent. And how
Mhm.
do you do with sound and making that terrifying as opposed to just it just being, a Michael Myers popping out, but playing with shadows and the noises that they make and stuff, and almost teasing the creatures, not necessarily just having them jump out all the time, but just behind something and stuff. They can play a lot of different ways with this.
Mhm. And I think for me, when I think of those creatures and I think of Halloween Horror Nights, my mind immediately goes almost to the Mind Flayer. Obviously, that's a huge, huge puppet, but like using that kind of style, maybe some kind of puppetry, having them be used sparingly, because I think that part of the suspense is not seeing it. It's like almost like Jaws, right? It's like the idea of like you don't see what it is right away. It's like a reveal, and it kind of pull back the curtain. This comment here, I'm going to get to this in a second, but we'll get back to that. But like sort of pulling back the the suspense and making it more tense. And
Mhm.
I'm very curious too because they played with sight before. They did it in Dead Exposure, most notably. They've done it obviously in plenty of houses. They play with disorienting visuals and all this stuff, but they don't play with sounds that often. In terms of like, you go into Halloween Horror Nights, you're expecting it to be loud, like in
Yeah.
general, music, effects, audio in general. And I think that's one thing that they could be leaning into, maybe trying this. I think that's what I think is like, if they go this route, this could be one of the biggest risks that they could be taking. It could be a great reward. It could be something if they're able to nail it.
Yeah.
It is, and it reminds me a lot of, and I think that I think about this every year. There's always this one house that is like, you have this idea that's like, on paper this shouldn't work. Dueling Dragons is my pick for last year in terms of on paper taking a ride and making it a haunted house. How do you make it work? For me, it worked. I know you like that house.
Yep.
Some people don't, and that's fine. But for me, it worked. I think The Weekend was another great example. House on paper that you're like, I don't know. So
Yeah.
many people
What?
skeptical about it. But again, I enjoyed that house a lot. It was one of my favorite houses of that event. And so this could be a house that works. It could be a house that maybe like a certain, few other houses, some different IPs in the past that maybe didn't necessarily nail the medium 100%. And it's like, that's more my head's at. It's like, I'm personally not someone who's necessarily leaning into this 100% as much as I am with some of the other ones. Some of the other ones, I'm
Mhm.
like, yeah, I think this has a chance. We've seen it before. Ghostbusters, Freddy, we've seen them do that before. So trying it again, we know kind of how it might go. This one, I don't even know.
And it's funny that you say that. It's almost like you queued it up of what an idea of what I said earlier about Horror Nights is sort of they're doing something in plain sight that we haven't really taken notice, but they keep doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Halloween, they did it before, they did it again. Texas Chainsaw, they did it before, they remade it again, and they keep almost doing this with properties that they've done before. It's almost like they're saying, let's give this another try. Maybe we can do it differently, or we have a soundstage we can use for this. And that is what everyone is saying about the other idea of what could be coming.
Here's a lullaby to close your eyes. Goodbye. It was always you that I despised.
Damn.
Wow.
What a trailer.
That gave me goosebumps, even though that's an old trailer for when it came to Halloween Horror Nights. We're talking about Welcome to Silent Hill, based off the video game, not based off the movie, which, interesting enough, with Last of Us of last year, they're kind of having that rebirth of, we can do video game houses. We kind of figured out how to get this right.
Sure.
So that could be a nod to Silent Hill, the symbol being, silent. Could be that as well. I know a lot of people are wanting it to be Silent Hill. I can go either way, either one. I would like to see them take a risk with A Quiet Place, but if they do Silent Hill, I could definitely see that being a really terrifying, freaky house. They already still probably have the nurse outfits from the weekend. They probably still have tons of those they can reuse. So I could definitely see them giving this kind of a second chance.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot that could be looking forward to, like you could look forward to with this, because Horror Nights now, for better or for worse, is not what Horror Nights was 23, whenever this house was around. So it's a completely different event, but I feel like the budget's definitely higher, like in terms of how, like, creating these, like, and I think about that, like, not saying that the house back then, like, wasn't very detailed, but like you could just do so much. And I wonder what the I love this comment. Thanks, Eddie. No, I just think there's a lot. I think these are both very risky IPs, in my opinion, because I feel like they've been playing it very safe recently. They'll maybe have one big ambitious IP that they could or could not, like The Weeknd, I think, was one. The Exorcist, I think, was kind of one, because a lot of people were naysayers, including me. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to be about this. And then it turned out to be in my top 5 of last year. But so they have these, but they also have these very tried and true Universal monsters, Stranger Things, Chucky, like the classic slashers, whether that's Freddy, Michael, Leatherface, Chucky, any of these characters, like they use them a lot. Silent Hill, which I believe was the first video game house, I think it was either that or Resident Evil, one of the two. I believe Silent Hill was the first.
I think it was the first, and then Resident Evil might have been.
It's one of those
23 or 24 for Resident Evil.
Yeah, so it's in that early stage of them trying that IP and being more experimental. Last of Us, like you said, huge success. I think it will cater to a very specific crowd, and that's why I wonder whether they would do this. I feel like Quiet Place definitely has an appeal too, because I feel like it's a little late for that. I don't know, maybe the new movie brings people back, but I remember when that first movie came out, everyone was talking about it. They were not being quiet about that film.
That's true.
So I feel like now it's like, maybe it's like, oh, what's the, like I said, unless that new movie is something huge that brings so many more people into the franchise, I wonder. But I'm kind of the same. I can go either way on both of these. I could have this could totally be something else that has nothing to do with either. And I would be okay with it. So
yeah, and they also teased us last year. Remember the first merch that dropped?
Oh, yeah, it was the fog. It was the fog. Yes.
Yeah, the fog.
Is the fog going to be at the event this year? Are we getting it?
Yeah, all throughout the house, Silent Hill.
Yeah.
And the last one, which I have studied this image. I have looked at this image. I have no idea. It's a black and white skull. We know it's a skull. Black and white. Could it be a nod to my favorite scare zone of, like, not last year, but the previous year? Could it be Graveyard? Could it be that black and white sort of that I've never seen them really play with color in a house. So, or maybe it's the yin and the yang. Maybe it's sleep and death. The brothers could be a nod to that. I mean, Aiden, what do you got?
Okay, this is one, and I've been trying to find the specific image, but I know in my head I've seen this skull before, and there's a very similar one that a lot of people have been talking about, including myself. It was the first. This was the first icon I looked at. My brain
Toy Store.
right here. Yeah, you got me. No, it was the. I'm looking up because I'm looking at mine right now. Is the Tribute to Terror, and it had that skull on the front, a skull very similar on the front and the back, but I've been trying to find it in the comic because I've seen that skull before in one place or another. Maybe it was somewhere in the store, which for those who don't know, the Tribute to Terror was the tribute store, the theme for the tribute store last year. I've tried to find it, but I couldn't find it because I'm having a like total deja vu moment. I've seen the skull before, but even if it isn't something specific, it is in the same art style as the skull on the. Hold on, let me see if I can. I have it right here, and it's right here. That's me, by the way.
Wow. Okay.
But yeah, right here. But yeah, one of my prized possessions. But it's on the front and on the back and all over this, talking about Tribute Store comics, Tribute to Terror. I think this could be our time for returning to comics. They tried it last year. It seemed to work with a lot of people. It resonated with a lot of people. Now, specifically, I'm going to say this. I think the black and white is not just there for coincidence, my friends. I think there was a section dedicated to, and I know there's a comment about this earlier, about our friend Boris. I would, and this is a house that as soon as I saw this, and as soon as this was announced, like I saw this concept, I'm like, make it a house now, because they have this story they set up in this comic book that is a part 1. We don't get a part 2. Maybe this is a part 2. We see the setup of Boris. His brother's just been killed. We have all new Boris lore, right?
Mm-hmm.
Brother's killed. Woman comes into his office, says, hey, I got this idol. Like, we're looking at, we're having this conversation. How do you know me? How do you know my brother? And it's this very like 1940s noir detective sort of theme. And then he's sort of being stalked by these fish people. And there's this guy with a black suit on and black hat. And one thing leads to another, this Cthulhu creature gets exposed. And then that's how it ends. Boris is like, the idol's a fake. Sorry, I'm spoiling it, but the store's closed. So, but yeah, he's standing there with the idol, and that's it. That's where they leave you. And it's designated as a part 1. I think it's time we see Boris back, and I think Boris. This has been something that I've said since 30. I think Boris and the Legendary Truth should be the not filler, but like the in between the icons. Let it be the continuing story before we get whatever our next icon event is. And they haven't really done that, but they kind of have, because they had the Legendary Truth vinyl in 2022. They had that part in the store in last year. And maybe we get to see Boris come back. Or, I know there's a comment here, maybe this could be like a Slaughter Cinema situation where we have an anthology of comics, whether it's the ones we see in the store, whether it's ones we don't see in the store. Regardless, I think that this is very deliberate, and this is one of the clear symbols. It's like that Freddy one, that it was a lot of the same. It looks pretty much like the same symbol we saw in that house. So, telling you, don't sleep on it. Don't sleep on it.
Wow.
I'm telling you right here. And if I'm gonna plug this real quick, if you don't know this store video, I have a full video on this whole store, breaking down the whole story behind it, because it's something that. This was, and you might be surprised at me saying this. I've already talked to this with other people, but thinking about it, I love the houses last year. I love the zones. This was probably my favorite thing that I saw last year, because I can't stop thinking about this store and the detail and the story that's told, and how much I would just like I would love, and I know y'all love it too. I see y'all in my comments talking about the curator needs to be an icon and they need to do this thing as a scare zone or as a house. Maybe we see this year. Anyway, I'm gonna get off my soapbox talking about this, and I'm gonna I'm just gonna shut it down. I've said too much.
That's wow. I did not even think Boris. Um yeah, because where has Legendary Truth has been this whole entire time?
They've
I
been
mean,
undergoing a rebrand. They've been
did
rebranding
y'all,
since
did
30.
y'all know there was some guy walking around with a green skull talking about, immortality? Did y'all want to investigate that at all?
I
Investigate
think
this circus that came to town?
yeah, like investigating. I mean, they had, and I don't have it with me. I have all my Legendary Truth relics, I guess, around here. But on the vinyl, they had a ticket for Dr. Oddfellow's Carnival. So I mean, they had all the little tickets. They had storyteller, they had the director, they had something about Cindy, like where's Cindy Kane. So there's so many seeds that they could be placing. Will they? Who knows? But I'm just saying it's like, I think it's the perfect kind of, again, in between. You can introduce new characters to the Legendary Truth canon. You can keep some of the old ones. You can just do Boris. I mean, you don't have to if you don't want to venture outside of him, because I know he's very popular within the fandom. But I think just using the Legendary Truth as kind of this living in the background, and that's kind of always how they've been, like living in the background. They come out every once in a while. You hear sort of you see sort of like the event from the perspective of the Legendary Truth, whether that's with our icon that we're not going to talk about, that we're not legally allowed to say, or other houses, other events, tribute house. Yeah.
And that is all of the houses. Now, scare zones, they're all unknown. There's not, I mean, nothing has really changed about those. The locations are the same.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I've noticed, I think they're, same standard scare zones we've always had before. But there was something that was interesting. I didn't even catch this part the first time because, like I said, I looked at the houses. I was like, oh yeah, Death Eaters are back. Awesome. They're fantastic. I think they're almost one of the best highlights of Horror Nights in recent years that they've added. Because it's like you can just go in there and have so much fun just watching them do their stuff, and it's almost like a new audience where, like, Stranger Things brought in a younger audience. This has brought in people who are Harry Potter fanatics who are like, what's this Horror Nights thing? Oh, that's cool, but like, oh, I'm gonna go to Diagon Alley and like just soak up the entire night. I would have loved to just spent like one night just in there, just watching them do whatever they do. But there is Nightmare Fuel, obviously coming back. That's no surprise. A castle show, some sort, and this one is in the Animal Actors, which is interesting. They have not had one, I believe, since Brian Brushwood, and I remember going to go see that show that they had there. Interesting.
Yeah.
I would think if they're going to do that, that will exclude a lot of that area kind of being, I don't know, like a lot of activities, because they don't want like people lining up and then you got people trying to go to a house in the back and pizza fries, and it's just too much in that one area. But the area is dead because it doesn't have a scare zone, and there's no houses or anything in that immediate area. But a castle show, I mean, I've heard this.
What do we think about this one, chatters? You know what? Hey, we saw Mr. Pumpkins last year. So I don't think it's too out of the realm of reason. And I mean, okay, let's be honest with ourselves. I know some people are gonna feel a certain way about this, but what are Bill and Ted? What are Bill and Ted? Is essentially like they literally I want to say in one of the shows they had a joke about like kind of referencing how they're like kind of a out of touch old, like a old duo from a older film that's not like super hip and relevant. And I feel like that's like I feel like that Harold and Kumar. Now, what do you do? I don't know. Does Universal own that? Does Universal? Let me see.
I don't think so. I looked it
Because
up.
that's even
And I
weirder.
don't believe it was.
Because why would they choose to make a show on a old like 20-year-old movie?
Cinema.
So maybe they said if you get Freddy, you also get these two. They're a package deal. You can't get one without the other.
Oh man, it would just be the strangest idea to do that. I don't get it. Unless, like you said, it's a way of them doing Bill and Ted without Bill and Ted and making like a comedy joke type of show.
Yeah.
Which I don't know how that would go with Horror Nights now. I mean, we've had Nightmare Fuel, which is so epic. And then you had the Lagoon Show, which is like,
miss it.
It's like peanut butter and jelly. And then you got this. Is what?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Also, I don't know. And I'm gonna interrupt this real quick. I don't know if your camera's off. I don't know if it's just me or if that's
Oh no, that's the camera.
Okay. So sorry, I just had to point that out. I didn't want to throw it off too far, but no, I think I don't know. I think looking at I'm going to hop over here and some people who are a little more knowledgeable about this can talk in the chat. But I just hope that they kind of because comedy is so subjective, and I think about a show like The Hanging from last year's Knots, like how a lot of it was like, yes, you had the pop culture references, you had Barbie, you had Nicole Kidman come out, and you had a few, and I'm sure some people found that hilarious. But I wonder just how far you can go with comedy, like a comedy show like that, especially without it being Bill and Ted, because I feel like with Bill and Ted, people kind of know what to expect. With this, you're starting completely fresh with a whole new group. Do you just make it the wackiness of David S. Pumpkins, like how wacky and random that was for the event? And it grew this sort of like cult following where like everybody loved. And then when the actor was in a different actor, people are like, no, like this is the guy who's playing David S. Pumpkins. So it's like in that way I could see it working, but like that is just, it's such a wild, I think a more lighthearted show could work, but I also think, and going back to what you're saying about the area and sort of the crowding, I would just be so concerned because they're already running on less food booths. I feel like that would knock out that whole bar area under Animal Actors would be shot. Nothing going on there. And then everything kind of immediately around, like, I feel like it could, I know there's comment here about like, it could spread out crowds. And I think it could, I think any show would spread out crowds. And this is why I think like there's one location that I'm so surprised they haven't utilized recently. And that would be horror makeup. Just even if it's not a horror makeup show, like just utilizing it for something, or just even just running like some version of a horror makeup show during the event. I know they have been using it for like, I think RIP, or like, I know they did a media event there, but like, I think they're trying to allocate that stuff elsewhere. So I just feel like with horror makeup, you have this isolated location, right? Where like it's a theater, but it's not in the middle of anything. Like it's, the intersection where we have Cafe La Bamba and Mel's and stuff, like that's all pretty open and there's nothing going on there normally because it's in between two scare zones. So if you were to do something there at Animal Actors, I just see where that's going to be that could be very complicated with crowding and reducing the amount of like I don't know. I think it could be kind of chaos, and also it's a smaller theater than Fear Factor, from what I understand. Doesn't hold as many people, so that's another thing. And I don't. This is one of those things that I personally, and being honest, I don't think it'll last. I don't think it'll move forward. Like this is kind of reminds me of last year. They had a that this is a good comment.
Wow.
I'm gonna get back.
Wow. You
I'm gonna get
always
back to
have some
that.
good ideas.
Oh, I'm gonna get back to that. But like, I'm thinking like the idea like of having. Wow, that was such a good idea. I lost my train of thought on that one. Wow.
I'm Jason Blum, and welcome to
I mean,
Behind the Scenes.
I think if they were to do, I think The Purge, Dangerous Waters was a big hit over there. A Purge like
A
stunt
Purge
action
stunt
show
show? Oh man.
with the Bourne, with some
Wow.
of the Bourne props. Whip out the motorcycle, whip out the cars, maybe, have the gunfire, have the explosion, some, whatever.
Wow. I did not. Wow. That's chef's kiss of an idea.
I'm not going to take credit for that because I feel like I've seen that around before, like a Purge. But I think just like like a Purge. I mean, something in the Bourne Theater, even if it's almost like what they did with the DreamWorks Theater, where they just have like an ongoing loop. I don't know what that did for crowds in Hollywood. Whether it really did.
Yeah, it definitely was packed.
Okay, so it did move people in and out. I mean, because I think that either way, having a second show will do that. But I just think the Animal Actors Theater might not be the way. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. I remember on last year's map they had the when Vamp was put in Hollywood, they had this stage where they used to have like the Carnage Returns stage, like that area. Like the fact that didn't really go very far, didn't really go beyond that map, honestly. So like this, I feel like this could be a similar situation where maybe, yes, I'm sure there will be a second show of some kind. I feel like they know after last year, especially. I mean, you probably need 3 shows at this point. But I mean, let's be honest. 3 shows and give some people more entertainment. Even if they're small scale shows, like the Blumhouse thing was only maybe 5 minutes, wasn't like a couple previews and the Megans and that's it. Yeah. Also, you're muted.
Yep, it was very short, but it was kind of cool because it was like the whole lobby area, and you have to grab her there, and you take photos with him, and then the Five Nights animatronics, and then you got ushered into the theater. You need the Blumhouse. Yes, that would. Yeah.
That would be my ideal. If they were to ask me and say what would you want, this would be a good combo.
Yep, because they, like you said, they need something to definitely wave the crowds of how we've seen Horror Nights be from last year, and it's only going to keep getting bigger, especially once Epic opens and everyone wants to do the trip and do 2-for-1 type of thing. It's going to be extremely busy. So yeah, three shows would definitely help.
Three shows, and I think like Blumhouse could be obviously the smallest scale. I know you like the Lagoon show a lot too, so I just Lagoon show, like having it back would just be so, especially like last year. The one thing I will say we did gain out of that is that Central Park was empty, so it was like a quiet spot, one of the few quiet spots at the park.
True, yeah.
When you can go, like, although it definitely felt like you were not supposed to be over there because there was like no lighting. It was literally just pitch black. But yeah, it did feel like one of the few quiet spots. And that's why what I say about Animal Actors, and that I wonder, because I feel like that would just, it's such a, and especially the question then becomes, do we use DreamWorks? What happens with DreamWorks? I don't think they will. I don't think they're going to touch it. So it's already kind of a choke point back there because you have DreamWorks. If there's a house back there, regardless of what it is, but especially if it's something popular, pizza fries and food booth around, probably a couple food booths around there, and then the scare zone that comes through there. So you're already having this kind of choke point where there's a lot of people kind of congregating, hanging out. And then if you slap a show there, and especially a show like a big show. I think it could be, but this is all it's all semantics. At the end of the day, it's just they've done wilder things. I think that's one of the reasons, though. I think why Nightmare Fuel works where it is, because it is kind of so far out of it's away from everything,
Yeah.
all the other stuff. So when you let out, it's not like everybody's going straight into the chaos of people coming another way.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, because I'm trying to think of how they would exit out of animal actors. They would probably have to push you towards Springfield, because if you have them pushing you out towards ET Way, if there's a house entrance that way, it's going to be crazy. It's going
That's
to be
chaos.
flooded in that area.
And that house will have a long line all night, regardless
You're
of
going
what
to
it
know
is.
the show. So when it cues to the end, you're like, we got to go. We got to go.
Yeah. That house will be one of the busiest houses, just because of that fact. If you have people constantly saying, "Oh, there's a house here," okay,
Yep.
we're already on this side. So I feel like that's kind of what happens with Spring Tents. Like whenever Nightmare Fuel lets out, and there's the wave of people that come that way, back there by the Men in Black bathrooms, and they see, oh, here we go, here's something. I mean, or even if they, I mean, same thing with
Oddfellow.
Oddfellow too. Like that
Mhm.
entrance, like, yeah, you're coming that way and you see a house and you're like, okay, well, we have it's next up on our list. Okay, we haven't hit this back area yet. And I know they're trying to get people back there because there's not any scare zones really, but Twinkie.
Yes, I didn't even think about that. Twinkie dessert, maybe like a deep fried Twinkie.
Deep fried Twinkie. Bring those back. I feel like that's a very like old school thing. They haven't done. Like, we're trying to be elevated with our food. We're not trying to go back to deep fried Twinkies. Sometimes that's what people want. That's what people need.
Thank you to everybody that is tuning in. I think we have like 37 people in here, like watching. So thank you. If you have any questions, any thoughts about the spec map, anything you want to ask us, I will tease something about this map that could be coming up in the next map. So stay tuned for that.
Oh, that's an exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know about that. I'm breaking the news.
Yeah, that's definitely, it's a walk-in logistics back to the That's going to be rather interesting how they do that. I get some good comfortable walking shoes, especially some waterproof just in case there's any puddles back there.
Yeah. I was talking, and for those who are here, I know some of y'all were in my last live stream, and I tried to talk about this the best I could without Universal keep shooting me down, but like
shutting you down.
But like going back to the map, you have, the way it is right. You have, I believe it's 4 up there in the top, like 4, because one's entering by Oddfellow, one's entering, 2 are entering, one's entering over by the Men in Black bathrooms, and then one's by ET, and then the other one is where Last of Us was, I think. Yeah. So it is there. So we basically have the same 4 entrances back there, but this is saying 3 would be by Oddfellow, 4 would be by ET, which is, I think that's kind of odd personally, because 1 and 2 have been like in that sort of general spot before. That's kind of where they used to be for quite a while, from my understanding. And then because that where 3 is and Oddfellow was, that used to be Men in Black. That was like the Men in Black entrance. So that's another factor of it, is like, wait, how are we getting back there? And again, definitely comfortable walking shoes for sure, because
that's definitely, if that was Nightmare, like you said earlier about spreading out, they put that to be the new tent way in the back. That way they can map out all the long waits for that without using parade, maybe that area, or maybe they could still use the parade courtyard queue system, and maybe you cut out and go back to the street and then wrap around or something. But
Yeah, I'm actually I'm gonna pull up Google Earth real quick.
Mhm.
I and I'm while you're doing that, I know there's some other chats here,
Question.
some
Yeah.
comments.
So we had a good one. Here we go. Well, welcome to the spec season. How long will it be before the next map? No one knows, and I mean, except for Nightmares, they're the ones that put out the map. Generally, it could be a couple weeks. It won't be like immediately unless something gets announced, and then they will just kind of release a map with whatever's been announced. But it'll probably be a couple weeks because funny enough, I was doing research about Silent Hill today, and I was looking at when we first had something announced last year, or at least the ticket sales and um, unmasking tickets went on sale and all that stuff was like March 29th was the article. So we could be having an announcement by the end of the month. So kind of crazy. So who knows about the spec maps? It could be a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, could be a month, 2 months.
Okay,
Yeah, a lot of
I'm
people
popping
doing
back on because I was looking for Google Earth. So I don't have a picture of it pulled up for here because I don't know the stream, but but imagine this with me. So for those who've been to the event before, I'm gonna speak kind of in that term. So let's say you're going to Universal Monsters Unmasked. You're going down 3T. You go down and around the corner. Parade building is there. You go right across the way, and you can hear the music for The Last of Us. You see that entrance. You go to the left. So let's say you're walking into Last of Us. You're going into that house, but instead of going in the door, you keep walking to the left, and you go back like around the house. You don't go inside the building. There is the plot of land, which from what I understand is where they would be putting these sprung tents, is behind near the back of that second parade building. So my theory is if they are choosing to do um, to do this, the way that Nightmares had it on the map would make the most sense because those two original sprung tents are right there behind Men in Black. So putting those back there. There you go, Chris. Thank you for pulling it up. So it's looking like near the back there, where near the back of that, in that little jump, like kind of scrapyard area in the center, near the back of the second parade building, that's where they're looking to build it. From what I understand, from what we've seen from the images and things like that, and that's really the only space I think they could fit it if they're building them kind of next to each other. So the way Nightmares has it looks like the simplest way of them, because if let's say they put something big in 4, maybe it's Freddy, maybe it's something else, you can use that ETQ, and it would be a long walk. Like, don't get me wrong, it would be longer than The Last of Us, and The Last of Us walk was ridiculous. But that's the only way I see them doing that without impeding on the regular sort of area that they're going to use for facilities, for the park, backstage employee area. You can't just have people on the roads because you need to access those roads. So it might seem easy to say, oh, well, there's a road here, here, here. You can do it up, up and around. You can, but I don't see them doing that. Like, because typically they have you kind of corralled off to the side on the sidewalk, right on the road, especially for like the original parade building, right? Because you're just kind of there facing the road. And with the other one, you do have, like you said, have that courtyard where the weekend was having a party. But they have that courtyard right there. So saying if you take the original route, go that way and turn left instead of going inside of the house, go into that looks like a parking lot back there, keep it moving until you get to the tent, which could probably just be a straight shot, what it looks like how it is kind of like now for the Oddfellow location, which is pretty much you get to make that turn around Men in Black, and you have that. It's just a straight shot down that back street that that you're on to the tent. So it's it's messy. It's messy logistically, and it's breaking my brain. And I probably should. It's not that serious. Like I don't. I'm not. I shouldn't be putting this much stake into it, but this is, I think, the biggest. I think this is the biggest thing that could be coming to this year's event. Personally, the fact that we're getting not just new locations, but literally new locations, like built from the ground up.
Yeah,
It's
that's going to be
crazy.
interesting. A tent that's bigger than the previous tents.
Yeah, because we're not Hollywood. We don't build new tents every year. It's like we keep those tents around, like probably to the point where they need to be washed, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, they've openly have stated they would never go, I think, below now, because the whole thing of Hornets is they've always increased it, but they'll never dip back down unless just I would hope nothing would happen, but unless they just had to knock out something. Yeah, I'm knocking on the wood here.
Yeah, no more surprise changes to the event. We can't handle that again.
Yeah, I missed the Lagoon show that year. We need spring. Yes. Yeah, that's true.
I wonder what their deal is though, because I know that Springfield and the Simpsons are very iffy on what you can and can't put there. I know they've had chainsaws there before. If that counts for them putting a house entrance back there, but also I think that there's a lot more backstage stuff. Like they're like I said before, they want to clear out streets and like use roads that you can kind of be easy to. But if they just got trailers and employee break room areas, they don't want people running around back there. Even if it makes it a little more convenient, I feel like it's just what we have now is what we're going to see. We're just not using those two buildings, but the same locations, I think will stand.
If it were, it would like we said, Ghostbusters. It would have to be some sort of
Big
Twinkie,
stuff.
Slimer, Ecto Cooler. We want all that.
Mini marshmallows, like the little mini guys.
Nightmare on Elm Street. I couldn't. I don't know. Like Freddy fries, like his fingers.
Give me a like almost like the Leatherface pie they had at 30 with like Freddy's face, like something like that, like some kind of like really like kind of cursed like pie or cake or something that you can that like is the face of Freddy Krueger. That would be kind of sick.
And obviously, if it's Sweet Revenge, that's given. They can do anything with that. Can't think of anything that would be Blumhouse related or nothing with
well,
a vampire thing would be the blood bags to come back, but I don't think they would ever do that since they've been gone.
I mean, I think last year Stranger Things had more than enough. I mean, they had 2 full food or no, 3.
It's right over here.
Yeah,
the peanut butter, Yuri's
favorite.
Mm-hmm.
No, 2 full food booths for Stranger Things, 2 full food booths for Last of Us. Chucky had the 1, and then because I'm trying to think of like trends, right? So like those I think were the most marketable, like IPs last year. So if we were looking at this map as an exact map to see Ghostbusters, Freddy, probably I can't even remember half the stuff we talked about. But like Dracula, I think could be a good. I mean, Monsters. They had the Mummy cookie there that one year, and like just making some Dracula make like a Bloody Mary or something, like a Dracula Bloody Mary.
And
that's a big question.
Oh, that's a doozy.
That's a big question, and I think it depends. I don't think they'll knock down the event in terms of like size and scale. But I'm gonna say this, and this is gonna be me just talking out of what I've seen from last year and what I'm kind of seeing around the park right now. I feel like because of Epic, that budgets are getting a little tight all around the board. And it's leading to maybe certain, like maybe where houses and scare zones would have had X amount of money. I know the houses are quite expensive. So they're going to use that budget on the bigger draw, the bigger IP. And most of the time it's the houses, right? They want to put the most emphasis on. So I think budgets could get tight, but I think once we start seeing those epic returns, once we start seeing, those initial, the money, once the money starts rolling in, because obviously they have been charging more and more for Halloween Hornets every year, but having to pay all the characters and paying everyone who puts together the houses, both the people on the creative side, the parties that actually put together the stuff, and just making sure the event runs it. I think again, Epic's got to pay for itself somehow. Somehow Epic's got to, it's not going to just come out of the air. So I think that could be a way. I don't see them like you're saying, like, I don't think they'll go down on houses. I don't think they'll go down on zones. I think 10 and 5, if anything, I could see them adding maybe another show. I think 10, 5 and 2 or 10, 5 and 3 plus food, plus tribute store, plus extras like the Death Eaters, like if they have another horde this year, like if they have, whatever else, any kind of extra entertainment, whether that again be in hotel experiences, whatever. I don't see them cutting down on that stuff. Maybe whatever just doesn't directly make them money, because like the tribute store, no, the tribute store makes them money. There's a reason they put it back in New York. I mean, there's a reason they use that specific location, because it makes them so much money, I'm sure, in terms of merch. And I mean, so I don't think so.
No, if you watch, I did a video, Lodge did a video. I think you did a video on this, the Blumhouse, the Blumfest, the Q&A. If you go back and watch our videos on that, they stated about the formula of it's just a perfect match. 5 IPs, 5 originals. It just always makes sense. Now they might switch out 1 or 2 depending on if something drop out or something, and they have to do some sort of like quick switch or something. But typically they stuck with this sort of 5 and 5. It just works.
And I think the only year that I can think of recently that they've had, because 2019 they had 6, and I think that was mostly because of us. I want to say was like the one that they kind of like were like, we, as far as I think they even said this at the Q&A, they were like, we have to do us. Like that's one that they they felt the need to. And 2022 31 they had 4. Dropout, that was that's been talked about before, but the weekend, was it the Weekend Monsters, Blumhouse, and Halloween, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my thing is, I think all around this year, I think it's going to be smaller. I don't think it's going to be as big as last year in terms of like The Last of Us, Stranger Things. Those are huge. I mean, huge IPs. Chucky, The Exorcist are like name grabbing, like people that kind of know those horror IPs, even though The Exorcist was different. Like you say, The Exorcist is at Halloween Horror Nights. It doesn't matter what it is. People will come in the door for that. And then Monsters is a staple. So having those is like, I think it was one of the strongest lineups on paper, especially. You're like looking at this going, oh my God, this is insane. Like having this, it reminds me of 2019 in terms of like Killer Clowns, Ghostbusters, Universal Monsters, Rob Zombie, Jordan Peele, like all of these big names coming together. But I think I think we might see maybe 2 to 3 big ones and a few fillers, I think, are just to kind of round out the lineup. Not saying they will be bad, but I'm saying like smaller IPs like Blumhouse, I think, for example, could be something a little smaller. Although if they do Megan, that will be a huge deal. Yeah. Huge deal.
What I've noticed that with Horror Nights is like the marketing aspect of it is they want those almost like the three big IPs. Those are the big ones they advertise. That's the billboards.
That's the commercials.
The t-shirt, the commercials.
Yep.
That's the one where they're like, we got to pull this crowd, this crowd, this crowd. And we also have like these other IPs that, you know, like Chucky wasn't a huge one, although it was always huge within like the lines of that house, but Chucky wasn't the main one last year. We knew it was Stranger Things was the biggest, and Last of Us, and Exorcist, just because the tie-in of, you know, the fan base from, you know, the original Exorcist.
And I think like going back to this is like, and I know this can kind of be, this has been a time, I don't know if you were thinking about this before, I feel like you were kind of teasing it, but like the idea if you have Nightmare on Elm Street and the Ghostbusters, 80s, you know, like that idea of like some like not necessarily maybe doing it as hardcore as like 29 where they went all in on the 80s, but like like I think they did that and they did it, you know, I think pretty well, but I don't see them going back, especially this quick, to doing that again. But I think that they doing like something like that, maybe having that be the in, and then saying, like you said, like, oh hey, we have Blumhouse here too. Oh hey, we have like kind of like how 28 was like, oh yeah, we have Poltergeist and Stranger Things and Halloween, but we also have Trick or Treat is here, and I believe also Blumhouse was there, and like a couple other IPs that are not necessarily like 80s specific. So, you know, whatever they might be. Silent Hill, I think, will be another one of those. Like, I think it'll have its base, but I don't think it would be a let's break down the door for Silent Hill personally. But I think for the horror fans, oh yeah, I think they love it. Like, so horror fans will be all over that
for sure. Could be if they want to tie it in and get people excited for Epic Universe, or maybe not.
I think this would be the perfect, and I know, and again, this can totally evolve. Maybe this has something to do if they're doing Dracula, because I know Dracula has a role in that, in the ride, especially. You know, and Universal has said this. This is not us. This is not speculation. They said that he's playing a role in the ride. But I think this year would be the perfect year for a Monsters swan song. Let's bring them all together again. Let's do one last big, and then you say, okay, yeah, you like this? Okay, you can go. Because I feel like that's part of what the Monsters were. Right?
Is it going to be at the end of the house where you're leaving? That says the adventure continues at Epic Universe.
They do the thing that they had in Chucky where they have the like wall of merch. They're like, hey, if you like this, you can pick up a T-shirt in the gift shop down the way. With like a ticket booth. It's like, yeah, buy your tickets for Epic Universe right now. No, but I think like doing it in this way, because I feel like they're creating their own kind of canon, right? They have, I know Hollywood's is definitely a lot more stronger than ours, in that they have time and place and all that defined. But I think for as much as we love these Monsters houses in general over the course of the run, I think they're running its course personally, because I think that what they're being used for is no longer needed. They are being used to get people hyped for Epic Universe. Yes, they're good houses. Yes, they're themed really well. They're paying tribute to the legacy of the studio, and that's something Universal's been doing all across the board. So I'm not saying that they're specifically here to market the park, but seems kind of coincidental that over the since Epic Universe was announced, we've had a Monsters house every single year, getting people familiar. Frankenstein, Dracula, Wolfman, Mommy. Let's get these characters back in people's heads, so that when you go to the park, you already, first of all, have a base of people that came every year. Because those houses, I will say, fan favorites. I feel like those are like some of the biggest fan favorites across the board. Also, I like this comment. I like this comment right here. Pizza fries. Freddy
Baker.
Like, or it's like one of those like I don't know how they would do that, Freddy. Like that now that could be a popcorn bucket, a Freddy bucket, like his head or his hat or something. Like they did the Wonka hat for the Wonka movie. It's his hat or like a hand with the thing. Because I'm like, you can't just you can't sell the glove. That's a liability waiting to happen.
Yeah, you have to pick that up on your way out.
Yeah, we're shipping that to the hotel. You can't buy that here. Yep.
Yeah, they do it in Hollywood. They kind of merge the Us and Nope together. Although, I mean, they could do a little more with Nope during Horror Nights. But I guess because they have the tethered there, they're already kind of like terrifying. So they don't want to add too much because it would just be like, what the hell is going on in this area?
I but I think Nope is a hard one because it's my favorite Jordan Peele movie, and I wish it could become a house, but I'm trying to think of like, first of all, the size of the building they would need for that to do the scale of the house and the Jupiter's Claim, the theme park and all that stuff. But it's also like so much of the movie is what you don't see, and it's kind of almost like a Quiet Place situation. It's like where do you put characters? My theory there was if any of you have seen when they did the media opening for Jupiter's Claim in Hollywood, they had sort of the townspeople of Jupiter's Claim roaming around, and then they had the moment where the sound, things start clicking and the sound and Jean Jacket is flying in the air, and everybody's like stop, like don't move. And I feel like that could be a fun way. I think Nope could be a fun scare zone, and they kind of do it in Hollywood, but I think it could be a fun scare zone. But I just don't think they have the scale. I think it's just too big for HHN, especially even if you put it in the biggest scare zone location. I think you would just need so much to make it feel real and feel big. But I mean, I would love it. I love Nope. I love that movie.
I feel like Silent Hill won't work as a house considering they tried and wasn't that good. And Konami is not really good at playing ball right now. It is an anniversary coming up, I believe, of Silent Hill, right? I think when I was doing research on that, I think it's an anniversary coming up. Plus, like you said, there is a new movie coming out. They could use the promotion or whatever studio company. So they can definitely.
25th anniversary of the
There
first
you
game.
go. Yeah. And we know Horror Nights loves anniversaries. There's a lot of anniversaries this year, right?
I mean, basically everything would be an anniversary because it was Silent Hill, Ghostbusters, and Freddy.
Ghostbusters.
Both of them are same year, so both 40th anniversaries. I think the Silent Hill thing, Konami not playing ball. Now that's an interesting because I feel like Universal at this point, if the IP holder is not wanting to work, they're gonna go fine. We can move on without you. Speaking of redacted IP from 2022 that I won't talk about, that it seems very much like it's like if you at this point they're like, listen, we can only do so much. And I know there's a part of it that's like not knowing the clientele. Obviously, Neil Druckmann, Sony, they were very cool with Horror Nights last year. Netflix has always been pretty good with Horror Nights. I feel like they've done Stranger Things how many years in a row, and Haunting of Hill House. So like they've done many houses. And then I feel like Warner Brothers is kind of an iffy one because of Beetlejuice was the last time. And I mean, they're redacted IP. I mean, they're everywhere, but they're not. They're so like I feel like they can't. Horror Nights just doesn't have time to mess around with. And I feel like especially after being burned so many times recently of IPs dropping out, they're like, listen, we're not gonna. If you're not gonna want to mess around, if you're gonna have all these demands, then we'll find something else, or we'll just pop an original in there, because I just don't see where do they want to really mess with. I mean, last year, Last of Us and Stranger Things were the only outside IPs. Blumhouse I mean, Universal and Blumhouse, right? Monsters is them. Chucky is them too at this point. So it's like they pretty much have claim of most things. So they like to maybe do one or two outside properties. And I know there's a comment here about Gremlins, and Gremlins, that's another WB. So I don't know how they feel. I mean, I know they haven't done the event for a long time, the haunt event in California, but I feel like they're kind of licensing their stuff out too, because the Conjuring and Saw. I don't know if I think Saw's Warner Brothers or that's Legendary or it's another studio like that. I know. I mean, Conjuring going to Six Flags. Saw also went to Six Flags, but
true, yeah.
So like I feel like they're then looking for like, just because Horror Nights is Horror Nights, like that doesn't stop them from literally sending one of the biggest horror properties, The Conjuring, like one of the properties people have been wanting for years. They say Six Flags, you're getting it. Yeah,
Yeah, I know. So, it's like what?
Yeah, like this. yeah. I think this is in response to the monsters, because I think we were talking about monsters when this was made as a comment.
Oh yeah, everybody spent last day doing pretty much every house they could.
I know for me it was still.
We did talk about that. We did say it could be a nod to Wolfman. Like you said, they could do multiple houses for monsters: Dracula, Wolfman, Creature.
Or I mean, this could always be Blumhouse's Wolfman. I mean, because Blumhouse's Invisible Man is not Invisible Man as we saw him in Unmasked last year. Like, it's two completely different vibes. So, and that's kind of how they did it the last time. Like with 19, they had Frankenstein and Dracula, which were like original, kind of like originals, and then the Wolfman was the movie, the remake. So, like, they could always try different takes of the same.
Hey, hi, hello.
What's going on,
welcome. April? Let's see. Gremlins, yes. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Everybody wants Gremlins. It's one of those. It's one of those properties that keeps getting brought up every single year. It's Gremlins. It's Lost Boys. No, don't do that.
See, they're telling you Lost Boys needs to happen. They're like, yep, thumbs up.
But yeah, the Gremlins always gets brought up. I don't know if he'll ever be.
It's such a white whale, but I think it would be such a big like cult thing if they were to ever to bring it. I know I think that this is like after someone who's going to the studio, because when I went to California, I went to the Warner Brothers studios and did their little tour. And very sad, there's barely any mention of any of their horror IP, any of their big ones. There was nothing. Like, and they sell merch in the gift shop of The Shining, The Exorcist, like these big, and I know some of them are very complicated with rights and stuff, but like some of them, like I was surprised because I'm like, they slap Pennywise everywhere on all kinds of merchandise. So I'm surprised there was no mention of, again, Pennywise, The Exorcist, Reagan, The Shining is another one they like to make a lot of merch for too. So I'm like, I think they're kind of at this point where, because of recent decisions, I feel like, and I could see Universal being like, no, we're not even gonna try with y'all because y'all
don't want these problems.
Yeah,
that is a good reason why you say that, and it's because, that's
what's
why.
happening with Scream.
The headache. They don't want a headache.
And I know people have been saying like, oh, this would be the year to do it because of all the nonsense happening with everybody, and now Nev Campbell's back, and and they're bringing back the original writer director to do the new
Kevin
one.
Williams.
And they're bringing him back to do the new one, and it's like, man, I think it would be great, but I just never. That's one of those that I think it was like, that's it.
Yeah,
Missed the chance.
we won't have that chance. Sadly. Everyone wants this too. This is also always
That's-
mentioned on the list of like Conjuring, Scream, 13 Ghosts. I always see these three brought up all the time,
Well, every year,
every day.
Six Flags is doing the
Yeah,
whole.
that's
Yeah,
true. They are doing. Yeah,
and Saw is coming back.
What's funny is they have like monster characters who are like just hanging about, like just walking around and stuff.
See, I like that though. I think that's fun. We've talked about like like I was just thinking like imagine they did like how they had the Sin City zombies at Halloween Scream, but like at
Mhm.
Miami Spring Break. Like that's where they do next with the vamps. If they're gonna do vamps again, I don't think they should, but if they're going to make it funny like that, like go completely into like Spring Break Miami, like like lean it in there because that would be just make it a comedy at this point.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's all under one umbrella, so they definitely could be.
I wonder if they would ever like. I wonder if they would because I know Knott's is very protective of their like. I mean, they keep their mazes for like 5 years, right? Like
Mhm.
5 or 6 years. So I mean, some of them are out. So maybe the ones that are out that they don't really want to bring back, or they're like, we don't need to bring this back. And let's say a Chilling Chambers, if they want to do a Chilling Chambers
Mhm.
update, and they'll bring the depths in like a fan favorite.
Because they did it with Paranormal Inc. They
Mhm.
literally transported the house from Knott's to not Six Flags. It's King's Dimension or one of those other parks they did.
Mhm.
They literally just uprooted and built it like there.
Yeah, and I mean, it could do really well for Six Flags in terms of like, I know it's a popular haunt out there. I know y'all, if there's any like Six Flags like Fright Fest fans, because I know it's popular enough with the community, like
Mhm.
they like like Six Flags, and I think it could make it even more popular for people who maybe aren't on it yet. Like I think that's what they were trying to do with Saw and The Conjuring to be like, come in here, like we got the Saw, we got The Conjuring. Yeah, maybe we didn't nail it right away, but maybe, in the future, we can maybe have a budget next time.
Yeah, they for sure had crowds. Like the crowds were crazy. Oh, we got Scream is
Yeah, I don't. I know we didn't talk about Hollywood's map, but on Hollywood's map there was a sort of knife icon for an
Mhm.
exclusive because you mentioned 5 and 5. Recently, Hollywood's been getting six IP2 originals because they only have 8. And they usually get like one, or maybe in the case like maybe 5 IPs, whatever. But they usually get one more than Orlando. And it's any range of items, something John Murdy pulls out of the treasure chest in the back. But one of there's a slasher icon, so people are like, is Scream gonna come? And I'm like, guys, if Scream comes, it will not be just a Hollywood exclusive. You realize how many people would get so mad at that? You realize how many? I mean, I would be like, come on now. They did it to me with Evil Dead, and I won't forgive them for that one.
So you're talking about the
The
H
10.
lot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where my theory for this is that I think Chucky's gonna come back. That's my big pitch because
Ooh,
it was
that's a
such
hot
a
take.
success, and like, and maybe they do another, because I mean those animatronics, like they spent even more money than we did on that house, I'm sure, because just a lot. Like I mean, you saw how many just big Chucky
Yep.
animatronics. So like them doing not maybe a repeat, but maybe some kind of new. Maybe they add stuff in from the new season that's wrapping up here in a couple weeks. So they add ultimate kill count again. That's what I'm thinking. Or I mean, I know a lot of people have also been talking about Michael Myers coming back, which
Well, if they do the Blumhouse ones, at least there's something new.
yeah, for sure.
The Blumhouse trilogy or something out of it.
That Blumhouse should, and that would be really interesting to see them get, like, if they only get that, then
Mhm.
it'd be interesting to see their take on it without any kind of our own, like, no comparison. You're just like, okay, how would they handle the, because I don't know how they would handle the Blumhouse trilogy. Like, honestly, like knowing the story, knowing how it goes, knowing how it ends. I think they could. I mean, they kind of do Michael Myers in a very particular way. He comes out, they have the loud, ding, like sound when he comes out, and that's about it. So I wonder what kind of things. I do think I wish they would have, if they were to ever do kills, I believe is where this was at. They because that was where he was in like the burning house, right? I think it was kills.
Yes.
So like
Yeah,
if they were,
yep.
yeah. So if they were to bring back that effect from the second Halloween house where they had the fire like in the hospital, I think that could be cool if they were to do something like that again. But this is
this one for sure will never come to the I say Scream is never going to come, but this is definitely never ever going to come to the event. For this to come to the event,
there's no.
I don't see a way.
I don't see where Universal would even want to touch this property. Like they would. I'm like, if I was, I'm like, absolutely not. It's, first of all, it's not like, not saying that it would be worth it necessarily, but like as a property, it's not. Like even as a property, yeah, it's a one of those movies that people like to talk about. But like, again, the controversy you would see, unmatched, unreal. So I don't think that. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't see that ever.
Sadly, yeah, that's one of those ones that it's gone. Nope.
Similar house to Blood Moon this year. I could see a similar house in tone, because I do remember on the Masking the Horror tour them telling me, at least in my group at least, that the same show director was the show director from Dead Man's Pier. So it seems like this is a new show director who's kind of like, not maybe just starting out, but not Charles Gray, you know, who's been doing this for years and years and years. So like this seems like a more fresh voice in sort of the thing, and they have a very distinct style. Dead Man's Pier and Blood Moon are very similar tonally, maybe not the same house, but they're very kind of this yeah, but it's like grim period style, like very kind of quiet, like not like in your face with crazy monsters or anything. Like it's very kind of solemn. So maybe we'll see a house like that, like in terms of tone, but I don't think we'll see another Blood Moon.
You and Lodge. Me, no.
No. it's fast. Yeah,
I have too many bad memories.
I'm gonna reroute you to search up Losh TV on YouTube, and you'll find your guy, because that is the 3D guy, even more than I am.
He's the one pushing and voting for a 3D house.
It's that and The Purge. Those are the two things that he's all about. It's those two things that we can't get away from.
Oh, Chucky, yeah, it could be like a throwback to the movies,
yeah, or I mean, using the older Chucky like they're doing in the series, but I don't know how because they would have to make a whole, like that becomes a whole animatronic. Right. Yeah, because it's a whole different look than anything that they have. Because I mean, I mentioned I'm using Trick or Treat Studios dolls for the Orlando house, not as much in Hollywood, but I do think that they use that as a base for some of the more stationary animatronics, like the ones that like didn't. I'm trying to think of like which ones, but never do Season of the Witch.
But they gotta do Season of the Witch. Everyone loves Season of the Witch. Everyone wants it.
I think it's like it would be it's a movie that I'm like I simultaneously want at the event, but I want it to be on a right year. Like it has to be in the right year, because if they would have dropped that, like let's say last year, I'd be like, okay, like whatever. Wow. Like the year before, maybe, because it was like traditional Halloween pumpkins, and it's like the costumes, like so like almost this feel like almost like Sweet Revenge, where they had like the costume kids running around, but like that year I think it could have fit in, but like yeah, you can't just drop that at any point.
Let's see. Oh yeah. How do we feel about anthology houses?
Love them. Love anthology houses. I'll say this, when they're done right, and I think that like I think Slaughter Cinema is like a good format for this, where it's like boom, 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 killer, 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 like idea wise. But when you have an anthology house that some of the ideas don't work, then you have some of the horrors of Blumhouse houses. And not in like, I like those. The Blumhouses are fine, but like I feel like sometimes there are like standouts in there and they're like weaker ideas. And when you only have half of a, like if you have a really great half of a house, you tend to either forget or you tend to ignore the weaker side. Like I'm thinking Horrors of Blumhouse in 2022. Both in Hollywood and Orlando, people said that different sides were better or worse. I mean, a lot of people I know said that Freaky in Hollywood was great. A lot of people I know said that Black Phone in Orlando was great. I like them both in similar ways, but I think that can kind of be where you might run short with that. But I love anthology houses. I think if they were to do a tribute to terror, we talked about that a long time ago back in the stream. But if they were to do a tribute of terror, I think this could be a great anthology house. Or if they were to do another, like an actual Slaughter Cinema sequel. But I understand maybe why they might not do a Slaughter Cinema sequel right now, because Slaughter Cinema is not one house, not just one house. It is like 10 mini house ideas. So if you don't have the concepts, or if your concept's like, man, we could use this for a house, why would we waste a scene of this in one Slaughter Cinema house? Like, because that was what it was, right? With the Slaughter Cinema, you had this format that then became Yeti Terror of the Yukon, and trying to think of the other. I feel like there's other like Slaughter Cinema spinoffs. I mean, possibly if they were to do like Devil Dogs in the future, or like, Shitty's Kids, like you have these ideas that could be their own spinoff haunted houses. And Holidays in Hell. I see there's a comment here about Holidays in Hell. That's another one that I think, I know Hollywood, I feel like Hollywood fans love that house. Like that, like some people might not like it, but I feel like people in Hollywood love that house for many different reasons, because it is almost like that, where it's like you go in already kind of knowing what to expect. So you're like, hey, we're going to see some Christmas, we're going to see some Thanksgiving, we're going to see some St. Patrick's Day, we're going to see some Valentine's Day, and then you then can be surprised about like what angle they take on it, like with the Valentine's Day or whatever. I think Holidays in Hell could be a really, really fun anthology. I mean, I've always pitched, if they were to do the Dark Christmas idea is enough to carry its own anthology. In my opinion, they've done so many great little angles with Dark Christmas, whether that be Psychoscarapy, whether that be Krampus, whether that be HR Blood and Guts. I know that's another fan favorite anthology house that's almost kind of like Holidays in Hell, like the pre-Holidays in Hell.
Yeah, I enjoyed Holidays in Hell. My group did not. As April says, she didn't like the smells in there.
I have heard the smells are kind of overwhelming in that house particularly.
Yeah, in Hollywood, they love their smells.
Love Holidays in Hell. I never saw it, but
Oh yeah, I know John Murdy always brings it up. Like, they were supposed to have Beetlejuice in Hollywood and Season of the Witch, and sadly, nope.
Yeah, he tries to deny, like, when people like will ask him about like, hey, did Beetlejuice not supposed to happen? He'll be like, yeah, or he'll be like, I don't know what you're talking about. In his John Murdy way, he'll always say something witty, but like, yeah, that idea of Hollywood, I feel like has that a lot. I mean, Orlando has their fair share of canceled houses. I mean, I did a whole video on canceled houses, and it was all Orlando, pretty much, because I had a lot of people saying, Hollywood, where are the Hollywood houses? And I'm like, guys, I'm doing another one, so y'all are gonna get some questions answered.
Is Lost Boys even a possibility for Soundstage 22, considering it's Warner Brothers owned.
I mean, I would say possibility, maybe not a high possibility, but a
No,
possibility.
I mean,
maybe.
Is Freddy under Warner Brothers or no?
I believe so.
Because
Well,
it's New Line Cinema, and unless
Line-
New Line is under Warner Brothers, it's kind of one of those gray areas.
The last time they had him was at that event, was at the Warner Brothers event with Jason as well. I mean, I know that's a whole another conversation about rights and
Jason Blum.
Yeah. So that's the only Jason y'all are getting. Sorry.
Peacock.
Yeah, there's even a comment about that. Would they ever give Jason his own house? And it's like,
oh, you might get the Peacock experience.
Yeah. you're gonna get Mama instead, but I don't think you not get Jason. Although I would be curious to see
that is coming out this year, right?
I would be curious to see if they do, because I mean, I know there was talk about this earlier. Leatherface in 30, Michael in 31, Chucky in 32, possibly Freddy in 33. Who's left?
The big
Jason,
one.
Yeah, it's the last of the big slasher characters that we know from horror media.
Then, by the way, there is that Halloween TV show that's coming with Michael Myers. So that's going to be, I think, next year or so. So that could bring Michael right back into Horror Nights again.
Don't forget that I'm here. I'm always here. I always come back.
I am Halloween.
Yeah, that's like this. That's like the Scream situation where it's like, what's going on? So I know they're rebooting and they're saying this is not canon, and that's why I'm like, I feel like if they were to ever do the Blumhouse movies, I feel like there's got to be a reason why they wouldn't do them, especially because they kind of know that Jason's going to be under another company. It's going to be another thing. Blumhouse is super easy to access for Horror Nights, so I'm like, I feel like there's got to definitely be a reason for that, for them not using it, especially last time.
Do you still think Five Nights at Freddy's is coming to Halloween Horror Nights?
It's complicated.
Yeah, it's complicated. From what I was told earlier on, it was not on the docket to come to the event this year. And then between that and then sort of the latest rumors going around about it not being at the event. And there's multiple reasons of why. I've heard both sides of that speculation. I've heard it's sort of on the back end, it's kind of hard to figure out how to do the house. And then I've heard, the other one, which is, why would they want to do it now? The movie came out last year. It's still a big hit. And yes, they are doing a sequel, so they're going to wait for that. So,
yeah. And if I'm someone who's taught betting, I think it's more on the first end where it's like, there's got to be those animatronics are expensive, and making multiple of each suit and putting actors in a suit, a tall suit, mind you.
Yep.
Where, I mean, I could just see 1,000 labor violations that can happen right there. Just any kind of nonsense. And you have to be there. There's got to be a level, because you can't, right? You don't have the same kind of movement capability when you're inside this heavy suit. And if they didn't do it that way, it would look cheap. I feel like it wouldn't even be worth doing if you couldn't do it. So maybe at some point, but like I said, things are changing. Budgets may be getting a little tighter. Universal might be saying, hey, maybe not now. The IP is big enough, but maybe not now. Maybe now's not the time to do it.
Kid Jason house confirmed. That's funny.
Nothing's confirmed.
No,
but
I'm just saying it's coming out on Peacock.
And I think
we have a lot of integration with Peacock and Blumhouse, and it's very interesting. And I know Aiden agrees with this, of the retrospective, how Horror Nights used to just be Horror Nights, and now it's kind of slowly having these other additions kind of bleed into it with the
Mhm.
Peacock and the whole horror is Peacock and giving you the promotional code and having the characters and Peacock Bar, and then you got Blumfest. It's really interesting of how Horror Nights is morphing before our very eyes. So Kid
Yeah.
House, Kid Jason House, maybe.
If not, and this is why this is why I was so surprised that they didn't do a lot for Five Nights at Freddy's last year, because it just seems like them doing this big integration of their IP, using their IP. I mean, literally, okay, Chucky literally had an ad for the show outside of the house. You come out of the house and it says Chucky season 3, it's out. Go watch it. So it's like, it's that. And I mean, like, going back to like having Chucky on Rip Ride Rocket, where he's like, you know, hey, my show's out on whatever. And like, same thing with the Starway. Like, having like ads for Peacock are kind of a part, like you said, a part of the experience now, whether it's through the bar, whether it's through the promotional codes, whether it's through whatever. So like them like doing that, and it's, and I don't mind it as much because I think they are still having fun with it. Like the Peacock Bar and then bringing out David Pumpkins is like a fun example of that. It's like,
Yeah.
it's not like just, it's not cheap in the way of like, it's not like this is replacing anything. This is just additions. These are extras. So like, and Blumfest, for the fact of it being free, what they did for Blumfest, especially last year, was really insane. Yeah. 2 free movie screenings, a Q&A, a photo op sort of meet and greet. They gave out buttons, all completely free. Not a penny I had to spend at Blumfest in terms of like, if I was just experiencing. Now, if you do any of the extra, like if you buy popcorn at the theater, they're not going to help you. But I'm just saying, like, even 2 free movies and it still ends up being like, you know, $35 depending on the
those were
day.
premium seats too. They
weren't nice recliners for sure. So I'm saying, like, I like what they're doing. I don't think it's the worst thing ever. I think having like the Blumhouse photo experience opening all year, I mean pretty much from then until the rest of the season, as an addition in City Walk, hey, you can hit up the Red Coconut Club. Then you can go and take some pictures in the Blumhouse thing and post us, and I think they're want to find ways for people to keep talking on social media. They have the whole stay in horror hashtag at the hotels. They have that stuff, and considering that, you know, can't film anything in the houses, right? They like do it in the scare zones. Let's have these experiences that you can post around and say, look at how cool Horror Nights is. Look at how it's more than just. I have friends who don't like horror necessarily that may be interested in the event. I've been talking to a friend who wants to go for the first time this year, and she's like, you know, what's it like, or what do I know? And I'm like, oh, don't even ask me that. I won't shut up about it. We've been going for 2.5 hours. This is off the top. But no, I was just like, there's so much stuff now that if you're vaguely a fan of spooky things of any kind of variety, whether that's horror movies, whether it's, you know, just the idea of like the haunt event, being scared, or the set pieces and anything, but like, you know, that stuff, there's a kind of something for everyone.
Yep.
At this point. And I think that's cool. And I think, you know, and that's what I feel like people, and I've always said this too, is like, if you don't like a house, there's 9 other ones.
Yeah.
I mean, or if you like 1 or 2 houses, run those houses. If you only like The Darkest Deal, hit it up. Get the whole story.
I didn't think about that, but yeah, could very well be Dark Zodiac House.
I would like Dark Zodiac. I liked the zone. I just felt like there was so much more they could do with it. Like so much more they could do with that. And I would like to see it, but I don't know how scary it would be unless you did like, if now that could be a fun anthology house, going through each of the signs and having like a set piece or like a kill, like a signature kill with them, like maybe like an Aquarius is like a water themed kill, or I know Ares was on the fire
Yeah.
stage with the fire towers, maybe like a fire themed one, like elements. I think that could be cool, but I personally don't think it would. I don't think that's necessarily, because I feel like that's way too specific for, it's like one zone, one sign.
Too recent.
Too
as well.
recent too. Yeah, I think eventually maybe when we see Oddfellow again, but like, because that's the thing too, is with all those scare zones, they tied Oddfellow into it, except with the exception of Vamp, I think, because Vamp kind of existed already as its own thing. So
Mhm.
like all those other ones were so tied to Oddfellow in terms of the lore. It's like, how do you take it without having Oddfellow involved? Or do we do like a Jack situation where we just have him referenced, where he's not there? He's just like, hey, there's a guy wandering around here, like, that's transforming.
Oh, unless they do a lead up to the anniversary year and do like Jungle of Doom is this year. Next year we do something else that was Shipyard. Then the next year we do, up until their meet. If they were battling or meeting each other.
And that I don't know. I wonder what the lead up for that will be, and I honestly think, had COVID not happened, we might have seen something a little different in terms of how the anniversary year was executed for 30.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping for 35 we said we have all these fans, we have this story building with Jack and Oddfellow. Maybe they bring back another character this year that can kind of add to that in one way or another. But
Anybody have any more questions? We're probably going to be wrapping this up very, very soon.
Yep.
I want to thank Aiden again for coming on and spilling some little nuggets of knowledge inside his head. Some stuff I didn't see in the map. So, yeah, it was my first year attending. I mean, we all have that retrospect,
yeah,
just like I know you recently have been going to the event, not as long as me and
Yeah.
Losh, and then I've been going longer than Losh. So it's kind of funny to have that retrospect, because I know Losh has that same feeling of, oh, I wish I went back, back then.
I feel like the only people that can really fully are the people that have been there since the beginning, which there are very few of them that have been there since Fright Nights. Like it's such a small pool at this point, but like, I mean, there are people out there who have, like, I've been every single year and I have not missed a year, or I've been going since maybe the second, third, fourth year, like really doing it. So also, I want to thank you, Chris, for inviting me onto the stream, and I want to thank everybody in the chat for being so chatty, receptive with the questions.
What do you think about the merger, Blumhouse Atomic Monster? Will we see these houses that we never would? Like what, The Conjuring? I mean, that's probably the biggest one I think they have.
I don't think we'll see anything right away. I think until they start developing, because now and then if they start like let's say they do a spin-off of The Conjuring, like another character or something, then it becomes like, when it's fully developed underneath Blumhouse, because technically those rights still would belong to Warner Brothers, because they're the ones that, they still own it. So I don't think that means all of this treasure trove of stuff is opened.
Yeah.
But I do think that there could be, if they want to, move forward with mixing up Blumhouse and Atomic Monster properties, bringing them together, bringing creatives together. I mean, I think it could definitely. I think it could be something that could be interesting for the next 5-10 years in the future, versus like this year. I don't think there's going to be nothing direct.
And I believe there is a Conjuring TV series being made as well. So you got Jason, you got Conjuring, and you got Michael Myers being made into a TV series.
Everyone's going to TV. I mean, that's
Chucky as well, right?
Chucky, and it's funny because it's like Chucky was such a I remember like when it coming out, people were like, I don't know, this is not only on TV, it's on Sci-Fi. Like it's like, we could have one way or another, but like now it's like, I mean that I really like that the show. I love the show. That's kind of what got me into the character. Honestly, like I liked Chucky before, but like the show was the gateway, and then I was like, this makes me think about all the old stuff more, thinking about like Curse Cult, and then going back as far as like even like kind of looking back and something like Seed of Chucky, like as they expanded like Glenn Glenda, like that idea, like them expanding on it more makes me like look at that. Like I don't like that movie a whole lot, but like it's like okay, we can see what it brought us. But yeah.
And probably last two questions. When was your guys' first year going? Yours was more recent, I believe, right?
Yeah, so my first year, I have a very interesting story with it, but I won't dive into it because it's later. But yeah, my first year was actually 31, so 2022, very very recent.
Nice.
But I've been following the event for a little while beforehand, so it wasn't like I wasn't going what's Halloween Horror Nights, like I knew what was happening. Especially and I'm so mad I missed 30 because I just couldn't make it due to circumstances, like just scheduling. I couldn't based on everything going on in my own life, I couldn't make it happen. So
for some reason I had like Jerry Seinfeld in my head. He's just standing there like, what is this?
What's going on with Halloween Horror Nights? Yeah.
Mine was Halloween Horror Nights 13, the director. When they did the morph of it being in islands, it was very weird. My first Horror Nights being over there, and then they went back to studios a couple years later for Sweet 16. So yeah, I've seen it morph into different stuff throughout the years. I've seen them have icon years, no icon years. I've seen them use. I went to Horror Nights when there wasn't tent houses, when Express wasn't a crazy thing. Oh, thank you for that super chat. You didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
I'm seeing here, like, 2017, 2018, or 2019, a lot of more recent, like, years here. So, I mean, like you said, you've seen it, icons, and then The Walking Dead for how long? What was that, 4 or 5 years? How long was The Walking Dead? Something like that?
Yeah. That was a rough season. We're like, is this ever going to end?
But yeah, no, like, I mean, a lot of recent years, and it's cool.
Yeah, that's usually how it works. You go once, you're
Hooked.
addicted. I've never seen anybody go one time and be like, I'm good. I don't want to go.
Listen, I'm going to say it like this. I took my girlfriend to the event last year for the first time, and she was terrified to go. I got her to do a house, Stranger Things, because that's where she wanted to go to. It's like, okay. But she did it. She's like, I'm scared here, and I don't know how I feel about this. Like, I'm like, it's not my thing. I was like, okay, whatever. You can enjoy it. As soon as it ended, we were going through the park. Oh, I remember when there was a scare zone here. This was a show. And I was like, see, this is how it starts.
Yep.
Then you start thinking about it. And I mean, you listen, 2.5 hours. I can talk about this all the time. So you hear about speculation and stuff, and then you're like, you know what the event is like. So now she's like, yeah, I'm ready to go back this year. And I'm like, see, your theory is correct. That I've never seen it either. I know. I mean, you never seen people that like completely turned off to where they never want to go again. Maybe they're not obsessed as much, but like still they'll want to go. So
I've been there for people's first time quite often. A couple different times I've been there for people going for the first time, and they love it.
Yeah, for sure.
Ooh, yeah.
Lots of great houses those years.
Yeah.
Both those
I
years.
mean, probably my favorite is the one we can't speak her name for legal reasons. Uh, I think that was pretty much not the best houses that they had, but that overall rollout, the story, the investigations that we did, especially if you ever anybody out there watch Disco Liz's channel, she was a part of that, like the midnight investigations and staying up to midnight to see that website roll out. That's the stuff that they don't do today. You know, it's just like we all wait for that little announcement to drop, and then they drop a trailer and put up a t-shirt on the website. But back then, if Aiden was around back then with Hornets, he would have been like every night, like with the string theory of like, yeah, at midnight we gotta go.
Now,
Like I wish they could experience what it was like back then, but
and I think that's why like certain things are like grip me like that. Like the idea of legendary truth like is such a fascinating concept to me, because it's like it's literally this HHN secret society that lives in the shadows and has all this little, and there's so much of a game attached to it. And I'm like, guys, we have insane technology on our phones, like app wise. Now they're doing new stuff, and like it's just like there's certain things that's like I'm like, where are we going? Why aren't we like? I feel like this is there's opportunities here, and I know it's not big IP and stuff, but Orlando is not as much. I think they know that people love original stuff. They know how to market it. I mean, last year I think I saw, at least from in my recent experience of kind of seeing events, they marketed they marketed the hell out of those originals. They made shirts for them. They put POVs up. They told people like, yeah, you come for Stranger Things and you Last of Us, but you stay for the Yetis, the Dueling Dragons, the Darkest Deals, Oddfellow. Like that's what you can experience this as well, and that is what people stay for. I mean, for in my opinion, from what I've seen, from what I know from my own experience, people come for the IPs sometimes, but they stay for the originals, and they stay for that original
yeah.
storytelling. Even something like Jack and the Icons would count under that.
Oh, that's the $1 million question. You can't do that. What is your favorite HHN house of all times? Oh man, that like I've had this question, and me and Lash have talked extensively about this. It changes depending on the year, depends on your time. I could say Darkest Steel. It's my number one from last year, but if I really think about it, maybe I might say like HHN 25 Jack Presents Monsters and Mayhem might have been better than that, or it might have been something else. You know, the first time seeing the director's house, I mean, it changes quite often. You can never just pick one to be like above anything else. This number one,
Sure.
at least for me.
Sure, and I know for me there I can think of 4 on the top of my head of my years, but for all for different reasons, right? Darkest Steel, you said is a house that I have so many memories attached to from last year, and certainly the house I did the most last year, the house that I attached myself. Obviously, Lash and I have a whole podcast themed to the Darkest Steel, so obviously
Check it out.
Yeah, we have we have an attachment. Also, Dr. Oddfellows, both of those switch for me, because I had so many great experiences doing the research for the lore and making videos about Dr. Oddfellow and what's happening with Oddfellow and what's the story, and sort of seeing that come to life in a house. Even though there's certain things I may have not been expecting, I enjoyed that house a lot. The Weekend, my first house that I ever did. You know, like you said with the director, like that's your first house can be like going back to that first, even though it wasn't super long ago, like the first time of like not knowing what the hell you're gonna get yourself involved into. You're like, okay, what's going on? Because you may have experienced a haunted house somewhere else, but not at Horror Nights. It's a completely different situation, scale wise, sound wise, visual wise, effect wise. And then I mean, seeing Deadman's Pier for the first time, getting to see that facade and seeing the boat. Like those are the 4 that I can just think of, but I can think of all. I enjoy different parts of all of them. I when you're obsessed, you think about them all the time. You get quotes in your head. You can see the scenes playing out in your head. You can smell something and be like, "Hey, I remember that from a thing." Lots of wicked growths in here. Wicked growths.
Yeah. Graveyard games. Oh man,
Scarecrow,
that's good. That's a
Graveyard
good one right
games.
there.
Yeah.
Blood Moon. I know Losh would love that.
and it's so funny because I don't hate it as much as he does. I like that house, but I mean it's a fun house. I could totally see people putting that in their top.
Oh yeah, Blood and Guts.
Guts.
Yeah. All right, it is now midnight.
Yeah.
So I teased something earlier.
Uh-oh.
I'm gonna give you all a little something to go out on. But first, see, I know how to tease y'all. Make sure you head on over here to Dreamport Productions. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and hit that button on there. Let's get this man some more subscribers. If you love his theories, he does some deep dives. Obviously, you can tell what he loves. He put into every single video. Definitely head on over there. Check it out. You'll love
Thank you for the plug.
You'll love what he has. And as well as, where are they? I'm trying to figure out. Where is it? Where's the Barrel House Boys?
They're somewhere there.
There we go. Also, head on over if you love theme parks, Halloween Horror Night stuff. Barrel House Boys podcast. That is Dreamport Productions and Losh, Aiden, and Losh TV. They have some great back and forth banter on there. As you can see right there, it's playing. Definitely check them out. Podcast comes out what?
We're trying to do it every so often, but things get in the way. There's a very special episode coming next whenever Losh gets a minute. He's got the files. I don't.
Yeah. I don't know who got that. Did y'all flip a coin of who's going to edit that, or you were like, nope?
He was the one that records it. So I mean, I'm usually work on thumbnails and stuff. And I mean, I can always edit, but that's how it goes.
Oh, you're very welcome. Glad you all enjoyed it. Wow, like we consistently had like 30 something people watching. So thank you all for the questions. And now for the tease, we're going to go back to the map. Now there are two things I was told around the speculation season, way early. We're talking like a couple months ago. I was told these two things. They are not on here yet. Two of them are IP related, but they're not listed on there. Could be switcheroos, could be something else that came in the place of those, or it could be a scare zone.
Yeah.
I'll leave that with you all.
Yeah.
Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for the support. Think about that one. Twisting my
something to leave you with.
Well, we'll see if this comes into play in the next speculation map. But I might have teased it in an earlier speculation video. So have fun with that. That is it for the pod. Thank you all. Thank you, Aiden, for tuning in and giving us your knowledge. Thank you all for in the chat. And any last words, Aiden?
No. It's almost 3 hours. I don't have any words. I've said all my words.
Have a good night, everybody. Thank you all for tuning in. Peace out.
Rock and roll.